All right. Get my mic here. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cool Beans Hot Stuff. Today is Friday, and I fucking love Fridays. And that's not just because it's the weekend, it's because every Friday here at Cool Beans Hot Stuff is Film Buff Friday, which means I get to spend 2 hours talking about movies. And I fucking love movies, and I love talking about movies. So it's a good time for me. Maybe hopefully here soon in the future, I'll get some people to watch the channel and come talk with me about movies so we can sit and chat while we're going over all this information. But in the meantime, I have a lot of fun just sitting here and chatting to myself. And my cutie pie, of course, she's watching like the amazing supportive girlfriend that she is. Mwah. Hey, cutie pie. And so, yeah, I'm just going to sit here and chat about this, chat about some movies, and throw this video up on YouTube. So if you are watching this, chances are you're probably catching it on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, and maybe come check me out over on Twitch. That's Cool Beans Hot Stuff is the name of the channel. I stream every weeknight at 7 p.m. So come over, say hi, and have a conversation with me. That was kind of the point of doing it live, is to have a conversation with people while I'm going over all these cool topics that I enjoy. But speaking of cool topics, like I said, today is Film Buff Friday. We're going over movies today. The specific topic, what are we talking about? Well, last Friday was actually my first Friday ever streaming. And we covered an introduction into, I believe I called it, today is Introduction to Film Analysis. Excuse me. Last Friday was, let me look through my handy dandy note cards here, and I can tell you it was How to Critique a Film. So last Friday, we kind of went over the difference between a film review, a film critique, and a film analysis. And then we dived pretty, not super deep, but we dived into and at least got a good understanding of what film theory is. Film theory is a pretty important part of film analysis. If you don't know a lot about film theory, not familiar with it, have no fucking idea what I'm talking about, that's cool. Go check out the How to Critique a Film video on my YouTube channel. I believe the VOD is also on my Twitch channel too, so you can go check it out over there too if you like. It's somewhere on there. Um, Burp. I'm getting better at catching the burps. I've been doing this for a week and I'm already a fucking professional burp catcher. So, anyways, yeah, we're gonna kind of expand on that. Last Friday we did a lot of research into film theory, different kinds of film theory. So we at least had an understanding of how film theory works, what it's used for. Spoiler, it's for analyzing film. And deep dive, we'll give a cursory glance, I would say, not a deep dive, cursory glance into some of the more popular of film theories that exist, and then went over what I kind of, from my research in my spare time, it looked like would be probably the three most popular or easiest ones to start with. Let's say the three easiest film theories to start analyzing films using, which was formalism theory, structuralist theory, and auteur theory, which were auteur. Yeah, I think it was auteur. Auteur, there's a lot of French words when it comes to film analysis that you're going to have to learn, and I'm struggling right there with you, man. So we even got one coming up here soon. I made sure to get up pull up a screen to learn how to pronounce it with you, so I'm not saying it wrong the entire stream like I think I was last stream with the auteur. But either way, those are the three most popular forms of film analysis, or not the most popular, but the easiest ones to understand and start with. I thought I'd expand on that knowledge. Today, we're going to go over, today's stream is called Introduction to Film Analysis. So it's a little different than just film theory. Film theory is a way to analyze films. It is analyzing films through the lens of a particular theory or a particular, it is essentially, I wouldn't want to say ideological, although some of them can be ideological. And when it comes to, like, say, feminist film theory or queer film theory, you're looking through it, you're looking at the movie through a ideological lens, for sure, which is the point of those film theories. That's what you're supposed to do. But not all film theories are necessarily ideological, I guess critical. It's looking through film from a specific critique. In auteur theory, we're looking at the film through the eyes of what was the director's vision, right? Auteur theory states that the director is the main, if not the one and only author of a film. That word auteur means author. So the directors are the main author of a film, and the point is to analyze a film from the standpoint of what is this director's vision for the film. Formalism theory, you know, I'd have to pull them up to be specific about them if I wanted to. I believe formalism theory was the idea that, you know, movies are created to give us a fake representation of reality. They're meant to be cinematic and crazy, and they're not meant to be realistic. Formalism is the opposite of realism. In a sense, we'll get to that here in a couple weeks on a different Friday. Dive a little bit deeper into formalism versus realism. We dived into it, you know, cursory glance again last Friday. So again, check that video out if you want a better explainer for that. But formalism is basically analyzing how did the filmmakers create this amazing, extraordinary vision of theirs. And then structuralist theory. Ooh, got a lot of coughs happening over here. Hold on 1 second. I am finally kicking this nasty, like, double ear infection throat thing that I've had for like 2 weeks. It's been kicking my ass. So I'm just kicking it this week, and I'm super excited about that too. So I have a lot to be excited about today. And then anyways, yeah, so we dived into these different film theories, and I wanted to expand on that. Film theory is only one way to analyze movies. You don't have to know film theory to analyze movies. It's helpful to know, and it's a very, you know, it's, I would say, if you really want to get, you know, in the weeds, not necessarily, I mean, if you want to be a professional, yeah, but if you want to have like professional grade levels of film analysis, then film theory is pretty important to learn. So we will be donating a lot of time on this channel to researching film theory and getting better at it. That'll be a big part of this. Today, we're not going to be going over any film theory related topics. Today, we're actually just going over how to analyze a film outside of film theory, right? So we're going to be going over just the basic elements of a film that in general people tend to analyze when they're analyzing a film. We're going to watch this video that we have here, this YouTube video that I got set up for you, which is how to read a film is what it's called. It's going to give us kind of an 8-minute introduction into the topic of how to read movies or how to analyze them. Then we're going to jump over here and we're going to learn about the key areas of film analysis. And I'm going to go through those one at a time. There's 5 of them. And then we're going to go through types of film analysis and how those differ from film theory, because there is some of the, again, if you watch the last week's video, you have formalist film analysis there, right? So that's pretty similar to formalism, right? You have ideological, psychoanalytical, cultural, and historical. Those are all very similar to different types of film theory that do exist. There is, you know, ideological film theories, as I said, formalism, things like that. And then we're going to, let's see, we're going to watch this Media Insider video on how to analyze a film. This is a fairly long video comparative to how long the videos usually are that I watch on this channel, but it was a really good video, right? We actually got 2 videos from this guy that I wanted to watch: Learn Film Analysis in 20 Films and How to Analyze a Film, the Complete Beginner's Guide. And he's going to kind of go over, we're going to watch this video piece by piece as we're learning about the different areas of film analysis, because the two go hand in hand. Then we'll learn about the different types of film analysis. And if we have any time left, we'll watch another 1 or 2 small videos. I have a couple picked out here just in case we have some time left over. How to analyze sound, how to analyze mise-en-scene, which I'm not saying that correctly. We will learn how to say that correctly in this stream. In case we still have some time available after we go over all the rest of the stuff, right? Okay, so that's the general plan for the stream. And let's go ahead and dive into it because I'm excited. I haven't actually watched this video, so let's see what this video has to say. This is how to read a film. I don't know what the channel is that made this video, but hopefully it'll pop up and tell us. Can we make this? Nope, it's null. That's a bummer. Okay.
Picks the brain of a lifelong movie critic on how to get the most out of the movie-going experience. It's the latest installment of the NewsHour Bookshelf.
A movie will teach you how to watch it, and while you can always eat your popcorn and enjoy the show, those lessons can be illuminating, entertaining, rewarding. That's the guiding spirit of a new book titled Talking Pictures: How to Watch Movies. Author Ann Hornaday is chief film critic at The Washington Post. She's joined me often here to help us watch current movies, and she's back now to talk pictures. Hello, Ann.
Hello.
So we can watch for fun, right?
Absolutely.
We can just enjoy it. But what is this? What are you trying to offer us?
Well, we live in an age of instant movie reviews, you know, with social media and websites and aggregators. Everybody, literally everybody, is a critic.
We all are.
We all are, and everyone loves to weigh in, and that's a lot of fun. And this book is really designed for those people who are casual viewers and who do have a lot of fun weighing in, but might want to take their game up a notch. And so what I've done with
Like what we're trying to do. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking into doing. That looks like a book that's worth getting. I do plan on researching a few different books that I can purchase and then start reading in my spare time. So when I come back here to talk film theory with you guys, I'm a little bit more up to speed on it and can have more knowledge in the subject, so I have a better understanding essentially of how to research, right? Because I find that's one of the more difficult parts of learning something new. If you're learning a new subject in your life, the hardest part is learning what you don't know, like learning what it is you need to learn, right? That's hard. Like if you don't know what you don't know, then how do you find out what to learn? That's, you know, that's the most difficult first step in learning something new. You know, that's why, you know, there's so much effort put into, you know, having classes, online classes, college classes, that sort of thing on this whole, you know, a whole breadth of subjects, because that's the most difficult part of learning something new, is figuring out what you don't know. Usually it's better to have a teacher doing that. We're doing that by ourselves, all on our lonesome. It's a really fun journey doing that. It can take you into some crazy territories, but usually when I'm in this territory, I'm trying to learn something new without a teacher there. Finding out what the top books are and then purchasing books, reading them is usually a good bet. So this looks like a good book to look into for anybody who's also super interested in this subject and wants to learn more in their spare time. Talking Pictures by Ann Hornaday is the book.
the book, I hope, is to guide readers through my process in evaluating a movie as a
The way
professional
you think
critic.
about it as a critic.
Exactly. As I explained in the book, I did not start out as a movie buff. I kind of came to this sideways as a freelance writer. So I've actually learned to watch movies sort of on the job, and in many cases that means through my interviews with filmmakers like writers and directors and actors and different craftspeople. And
I'm going to pause it right there, throw in another 2 cents. I'm not going to be pausing this video like crazy like that. I'm not going to promise that. I might, you know, pause it every 30 seconds or so, depending on how interesting what she's saying is. But I can attest to this, you know, what she's saying is she came from watching movies from a writer's perspective, right? I myself worked in recording studios for about 9 years. And there was definitely a point, you know, I came from music, just being a music lover. I loved music, listened to it all day, every day, had my headphones on in school, you know, all the time. Parents and teachers always telling me, you're going to go deaf one day. And I said, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about, old person. You know, nowadays I wear hearing aids. So, so they ended up being right. Sometimes your elders do know what they're talking about. But, yeah, I spent 9 years though working in recording studios, and there was definitely a point in time where the way I listened to music flipped from, oh, I'm just enjoying a good song, to critiquing everything that happens in the song, especially being a recording engineer and a mixing engineer and then a songwriter and a musician. There was no shortage of things to critique about one individual song, right? Like I'd have to sit and listen to a song 4 or 5 or 6 times and listen just once for lyrics, listen just once for the instrumentation and the production value, listen through it once just for the recording quality, choices in like what instruments they're attempting to record when they come in, yada, yada, this and that, the songwriting aspects of it, go through a whole nother listen just for the mix, just to hear what the mix was like. And yeah, it is very, very different. Anybody who's out there who has a professional job in an arts-based industry, whether you're a painter, drawing, writing, nowadays I am a writer. I write my own short stories. I've published a couple even, that if you get on my channel, whether YouTube or Twitch, you will regularly see, it's actually right above my head, right up here my Substack where I post a bunch of the stories, or will post a bunch of the stories. I think I only got one up right now, but we'll be posting a lot of the short stories that I write. And so you're a writer, painter, musician, whatever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you listen to music, watch a movie, read a story, you're more, you will read like one pass through to see how entertaining it is, but most of the time your critical eye, your critical ear is going to catch it, and you're going to start reading, listening, whatever it is, watching, looking at a painting. You're going to be doing it for the sake of critiquing what do they do right, what do they do wrong. So it is very valuable to have a person who is professional as she is writing this book. This is what we're trying to get into with Film Buff Fridays, is learning how to analyze films with that professional eye, that critical eye.
They've really taught me a great deal about this medium and how to appreciate it, and so a lot of their wisdom is included in the book.
Okay, so the fun of this, and we're going to have some fun with
Oh, yeah.
this, is go through the categories of filmmaking. I asked you to pick a few examples. We're going to start with screenwriting. This is the great opening scene from the 2007 film Michael Clayton. Okay, let's take a look.
2 weeks ago, I came out of the building, okay? I'm running across...
Man, that's exciting. They're giving us
car.
examples.
I got exactly 38 minutes to get to the airport, and I'm dictating. There's this panicked associate sprinting along beside me, scribbling in a notepad, and suddenly she starts screaming, and I realize we're standing in the middle of the street, the lights change, and there's this wall of traffic, serious traffic speeding towards us, and I freeze. I can't move. And I'm suddenly consumed with the overwhelming sensation that I'm covered with some sort of film. And it's in my hair, my face, and it's like a glaze.
So that's how the film opens, right? Unseen character, monologue,
Exactly.
empty building.
It's just incredible. It's one of the great opening scenes of recent memory. What I say in the book is a movie, as you said, a movie teaches us how to watch it really within those first few moments. That's when we're hooked. That's when we know where we are, we're oriented, we're in an environment, we're in a world. We have no idea how that voiceover narration relates to that scene that we're watching, but we have such a strong idea of the environment and the atmosphere, and we want to know more. And that's the great Tony Gilroy, the great screenwriter, making his directing debut with that movie. And it was just, it kept up that pace and that degree of intensity all the way through.
All right, our second example.
So I wanted to point out to something she said there. She's talked about hooking the viewer in at the beginning of the movie. Again, to anybody out there who's an artist who either knows or doesn't know, it's worth mentioning. That is a pretty common aspect of all art. Again, 9 years working in a recording studio. We're on 3 or 4 years now of trying to be a professional writer, getting some stories professionally or getting some stories published. In both mediums and in filmmaking, it sounds like too, there's a thing called a hook, which is at the beginning, somewhere in the song or somewhere in the story, where you are supposed to hook your reader in. You have to have something there like a dangling worm, something that makes them go, ooh, and wants to make them read on, watch on, listen on, continue, right? If it should be something, a hook hooks the readers, listeners, what have you, the watchers' attention, and gets them to invest in your story. So that's a pretty common thing in all mediums of art. I'm sure that they have something similar to that in painting, drawing, same thing.
I'm going to call this section visual storytelling, but it's about cinematography and design. This is from 1976, All the President's Men. Now this is Robert Redford as reporter Bob Woodward, and it is a very subtle. Let's watch it, and then you'll explain it. But
Yep, one of
subtle,
my favorite scenes.
Okay,
Yeah.
here it is.
This is Bob Woodward of the Washington Post.
Yes?
About that $25,000 check deposited in the bank account of one of the Watergate burglars, Mr. Bernard Barker. As you know, sir, the check has your name on it. We were doing a story on this, and I was wondering if you would care to comment or explain.
I turn all my money over to the committee.
What committee is that, sir? The committee to re-elect?
So it's an almost imperceptible push into Redford, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think
But something's
about,
happening.
Something is definitely happening. I mean, that is such a masterful shot for many reasons. One is that the filmmakers, Alan Bakula and Gordon Willis, his cinematographer, you know, if you think of a guy on a phone making a phone call, what could be more boring? What could be more static and more inert, right? And so what they've done is they pull back to get a sense of that environment, that highly charged environment in the newsroom, and they use
All those people on the left.
exactly, who are
watching
in
them,
perfect
too.
focus, by the way. So we can see them, we see what they're doing, and that they're reacting to what's on the news on television. They did that by way of a split diopter. It's very technical, but they maintain a very deep focus to take in that environment and that sense of tension. And then, like you said, they just push in bit by bit in the course of this phone call, and it's followed by another one where the tension is ratcheted up as it starts to zoom in on Redford's face. So it's just a masterful example of how a very finely detailed production design, such as that was for All the President's Men, where they literally reproduced the Post newsroom on an LA set, how a production design interacts with an actor and his performance to create, and then a camera move like that, just to create this amazing sense of tension.
So the category that
Man, so yeah, that split, what'd she call it? A split diopter? I think hold on, let me, man, I really wish I could make this full screen. Sorry, I can't make that full screen for you guys. That's a huge bummer.
But what they've done is they pull back to get a sense of that environment, that highly charged environment in the newsroom, and they use
all those people on the left.
exactly, who are
watching
in
them,
perfect
too.
focus, by the way. So we can see them, we see what they're doing, and that they're reacting to what's on the news on television. They did that by way of a split diopter. It's very technical.
A split diopter. Okay, so I didn't know that that's what that's actually called. I noticed split diopters. Quentin Tarantino has at least one scene in every movie where he uses a split diopter to focus on something in the foreground and have something focused in the background on the other half of the screen. So it'll be like a close-up of half of someone's face in one half of the screen, and the other half of the screen will be somebody standing behind him, and the two are having a conversation. Very interesting. I didn't know that that was what it was called. So that's cool.
That gets most attention usually is acting. Right?
Indeed.
So I want to watch a scene that's even from last year, and it's one I did on this program, Manchester by the Sea. It's written and directed by Kenneth Lonergan.
They're doing some
and
pretty
this is
old
Casey
movies,
Affleck
too.
And Michelle Williams. Let's take a look.
We couldn't have lunch.
I'm really sorry. I don't think so. Thank you for saying everything that you said.
You can't just die.
I'm not.
Honey,
I want you to be happy.
honey,
and
I see you walking around here. And I
would
just
wanna
want to
talk-
tell you.
I would want to talk to you, Randy.
Please.
Please, you gotta,
Please.
I'm
Please, you
trying to-
I don't know what.
No,
I
this is
don't want
not-
to torture you.
You're not.
I don't
You're
wanna
not torturing me.
I just want to tell you that I was
You don't
wrong.
No. You understand? There's nothing. There's nothing there.
Oh my gosh.
There's very few words even spoken in this film.
Exactly.
And that scene, I don't think anybody finishes a sentence.
That's right. And that's by design. I actually, you interviewed Kenny Lonergan as did I, and I interviewed Casey and Michelle about him as a writer, saying, what is it about his screenplays that make them different? And they said he spells everything out, including all of those ums and uhs. You know, what people are saying on the surface is just surface, and it's really the tip of a very, very deep and fraught emotional iceberg. And so he's giving those actors something to play that in the hands of a good actor, they can invest all that subtext in. And so that's just a great example of screen acting at its finest, which is really all about just honesty and truth in the moment and playing that subtext.
So pulling all of this together, of course, is the director. How did you come to see the director's role?
Well, you know, in interviewing the filmmakers that I did over the years, the two words that kept coming up were taste and tone. So if we go back to that screenplay as the founding document of a movie, it's the director's job to realize that to its fullest potential. So when you mention somebody like a Catherine Bigelow, the way that she tells the story of the Algiers Motel incident in the movie Detroit is very unique to her. I don't think any other filmmaker would have approached the story quite the way that she does in this film. And you can say the same thing about Patty Jenkins. I mean, her vision for Wonder Woman was very much, I think, a product of her personal taste and her predilections. And in both those cases, they work wonderfully well. Dunkirk's another great example. I mean, we could go on and on. It's been a good summer for directors, I will say.
The new book is Talking Pictures, How to Watch Movies. Ann Hornaday, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So that was just a little taste tester into how to read a film and give us a good little idea of what film analysis kind of is. There's a lot to it if you didn't get from that little conversation there. You know, in one scene, what was that first scene that they went over? They went over screenwriting. They just went over like the writing of that intro. I forget what the intro, what that movie was that they're initially talking about. Here, let me just pop it up, see if I can read.
It was screenwriting. This is the great opening scene.
Michael Clayton. Okay, so they went over some of the screenplay for the introduction of Michael Clayton. Then they went over shots, cinematography for the All the President's Men, and then I think that was All the President's Men. And then they went over acting in Manchester by the Sea. That is a perfect introduction into our next page. Acting, cinematography, and screenplay writing or writing. What do they all have in common? I don't know screenplay writing necessarily. I think it is, but they're all 5 key areas of film analysis. So there's 5 of them, right? The mise en scene, which we're going to go ahead and learn how to actually say that here in a minute, so I'm not saying it wrong the entire time. Cinematography, editing, sound, and narrative. The narrative would be your screenplay writing, right? So that's the general plot structure, character development, themes. That all goes into what you write into a screenplay. Okay, so those are the 5 main key areas of analysis when looking at a film and trying to analyze, you know, how good is this scene, what works, what doesn't work, why this scene is so amazing, why it sucks, or just, you know, when you're just pulling apart a scene to see if you like it. Is it a good scene? This is what you're going to look at. You're going to look at the writing, the narrative of the scene, the sound design of the scene, the editing, the cinematography, and then this word that we are now going to learn how to say. So how do we say this word? Let's
Mise en scène.
Mise en scène. Mise en scène.
Mise en scène.
Mise en scène. Okay. So what was I saying? Mise en scene? Mise en scène? Yeah. I was way off. I knew I was way off, though. In my defense, I knew that I was butchering it. Mise en scène, right?
Mise en scène.
Mise en scène. Okay, yeah. Mise en scène. We'll see if I can remember that. How long does it... I'm not even going to click out of that, actually, because I'm probably going to need that again here in a few minutes, an hour, what have you. You know, so mise en scène, everybody. That's how you say that. So what is mise en scène, right? Well, that is everything you see within the frame of a shot, okay, right here. Everything you see in the frame of a shot. This includes the lighting, how the scene is lit, obviously, the setting, the location and the decor, props that are used in the scene, costumes and makeup, and actor movement and blocking, which is how they're positioned and how they move about the scene, right? So lighting, setting, props, costume and makeup, actor movement and blocking, okay? All of those go into the, what was it, mise en scene? Mise en scène? Mise en scène. See, I already forgot it. I already fucked it up. Okay, let's listen again.
Mise en scène.
Mise en scène. Mise en scène. All right. This is going to be handy dandy throughout the rest of this stream. So mise en scène. All right. So as we go through these 5 areas of film analysis, mise en scène is our first one. We're going to go over what is included in that particular area. And then we're going to hop over to this video by the Media Insider. And he's going to kind of give us some more information on what each area is. And he's going to give us a few steps. The steps we're probably going to watch a little later in the stream. The steps of analyzing a movie will be very helpful as well. But yeah, we're going to go in and we're going to jump into each one of these things individually on this video, then hop back, read about it, and then hop back, watch about it, do it like that. Wanted to point out this YouTube channel, Media Insider, that I'm using. A decent sized channel, 127,000 subscribers. I regularly find myself referencing this guy's videos. He's got a lot of good videos on how to analyze and critique movies. He goes into it quite a bit. If you didn't watch last week's Film Buff Fridays, we kind of go over his channel. We'll be doing a lot of... we're going to be pulling up his channel quite a bit on Fridays because he just has a lot of really good content. So if you really enjoy film analysis, head over there and subscribe. I'm not subscribed on this particular YouTube channel. I got a couple different channels on YouTube, though, that I'm subscribed to him on. We'll subscribe to him on this one. Just give him the extra sub. Okay, let's go ahead and see what he has to say about film analysis.
Online to see just how many ways there are of approaching film analysis. Do we approach it purely as a storytelling medium focusing on narrative? Do we scrutinize the director as an auteur, looking at each of their films as part of a larger body of work?
That would be auteur theory. Auteur theory. I think he said auteur. Auteur. That's how he said it. Do we analyze them as an auteur? My British accent is horrendous, but auteur, I think is what he said. That would be auteur theory, right? That I was talking about earlier.
Or do we look at it as a cultural artifact that reflects the context in which it was made? The list of options is endless, and each of these perspectives is equally valid, but each of them would ultimately start with analysing the creative elements of a film itself. So the method of analysing that I'm going to offer in this video is one that I think is the most approachable to those who are new to film studies, and it will also lay the groundwork for all further in-depth study of auteurs, spectatorship, representation when you're ready. And it's all based on answering this simple question. How does a film communicate its major themes and ideas using the 5 key elements of film? Not sure what those are? Keep watching.
YouTube ads,
ideas.
you fucks. Okay.
So, film analysis is largely all about learning how to notice the deliberate stylistic decisions made by the filmmaker, and then questioning how that contributes to meaning. But what exactly are we supposed to be looking out for? Enter the 5 key elements of film: cinematography, editing, mise-en-scène, performance, and sound. Think of these as the toolkit available to filmmakers, each one able to signify meaning to the audience. Each element has its own glossary of technical language, which you're going to need to get your head around, but once you have, you'll be able to start noticing how they are used uniquely in the films that you watch. Let's take a quick look at each now, but for a more in-depth explanation, you can find specific videos for each of these on my channel. The first element we'll start with.
Yeah, we'll definitely be diving into each specific element on his channel. All of those videos at some point we'll watch. Next Film Buff Friday, we'll actually be diving into the eight elements of film theory, because the 5 key elements of film analysis are slightly different than the 8 elements of film theory. So we'll be diving into that next week. But when we do, we'll be watching his videos to help understand a lot of these things. All of the key elements that are in analysis are also in film theory. The 8 elements of film these 5 elements of film analysis that we're speaking of right now, all 5 of them exist in the 8 elements of film theory. They got an extra 3. So we'll be watching all of this guy's videos, plus some videos for some other YouTube channels that I found that are really good. We might watch some of these videos right at the end of the stream too today. So anyways, now we're going to go into mise-en-scène. Mise-en-scène? Mise-en-scène. I think I got it. I think I killed it.
It is the one that I think you will find the easiest to identify. Mise-en-scène. It's the world in which our film takes place and what it looks like. And there's less technical language associated because it's really say what you see.
In discussions with Damien about how he wanted the film to look visually, from the get-go, he said, I want to be very historically accurate.
This includes everything from the characters, what they're wearing and their props, to the setting, the objects within them, and even the weather. It's essentially the main ingredient in establishing the overall aesthetic of the film.
Scene 17, take 8. Mark.
How is the setting establishing tone? Does it feel warm and welcoming, or hostile and uncertain? Is the overall design of the mise-en-scène realistic or expressive? What do you notice about how each character looks? Does it reflect their narrative role, such as the hero or the villain? This leads us very nicely onto the second key element of film, performance.
All right, we're going to stop there, and we're going to go back to performance and read about that. So to stay on mise-en-scène, right, I'm going to go back to my handy-dandy pronouncer.
Mise-en-scène.
Mise-en-scène. That is going to kick my ass. Mise-en-scène. Mise-en-scène. I'm going to have to like tattoo that shit in the palm of my hand. Mise-en-scène. Okay, so to touch a little bit again on mise-en-scène, again, there's 5 areas of mise en scène to look out for, which would be the lighting of the scene, the setting, the props, the costumes and the makeup design, and actor movement and blocking. Okay, so very important. So next we're going to move into, he wanted to move into performance. Ooh, where's performance on here? Was performance on here? He said performance, right? What did he say the 5 key elements were? Editing, performance, and sounds. So his are a little bit different. What extra one did we have? Oh, narrative. He did not include the narrative in his, right? Interesting. So maybe we'll save narrative and then his idea of performance. We'll save those for last so we can kind of compare those. You know, I'm going to have to go on a rant here. Okay, I'm going to my rant screen. And you can't stop me. We're already here. So when I first started learning how to write, before I took any classes on writing, I was doing this exact same thing that I'm doing now. I'm like, you know what? I got a lot of cool stories. I was working in recording studios, was told by numerous people, like, dude, you got to write some of your stories down. It was kind of a thing that I was known for in recording studios, was having mostly really funny comedic stories. And most of the stories were things that had actually happened to me in my life. I have a lot of crazy stories, a lot of crazy shit has happened to me or people that I know. And it, you know, chilling in a recording studio, there's a lot of downtime. You're spending, you know, depending on what kind of music you're recording. I recorded a lot of hip hop and worked with EDM musicians and mixing and sound design and things like that. And, you know, country music too. You know, the last recording studio that I actually owned and worked at, a lot of country music going through there, and you know, really all forms of music, but depending on the kind of music, there's a lot of downtime. You know, in country music, you're going to spend a lot of time chilling with the artists and the producer, drinking some whiskey. You know, when you're recording hip hop, you're going to spend a lot of time chilling with the artists and the producer, smoking weed, right? If you are doing EDM, you're going to spend a lot of time chilling with the artist and the producer, who are usually the same person. Snorting coke or something similar, you know, a party drug. But you're usually hanging out and talking about, you know, bullshitting, right? You're creating an atmosphere. That's something that a intern in a recording studio, if any of you are looking to get into the recording industry, that is something that an intern can bring to the table that makes them hireable, that makes musicians, artists, and producers want them in the room, right? If they're competent at their job and they got a real good vibe and they can really chill, relax, and make everybody laugh, smile, and they're, you know, keep the mood up, that's a very good skill set to have in recording studios. And I had that skill set, especially when I was young. I was very excited to be there. I grew up in Wyoming, where there was no recording studios. There wasn't even music schools in the town that I grew up in. So it was legit exciting to be sitting in a recording studio. You know, I mean, my whole childhood, you know, I told people I want to work in music, and people are like, oh, that's bullshit. You'll never do that. There's no such thing. You know, I actually had people tell me that. There's no such thing. People don't actually work in recording studios. You weren't born in Hollywood and yada, 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 you know. And so by the time I was working in recording studios, at one point, yes, in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, I lived there for a little over a year and worked in recording studios. It was exciting, man. I was so fucking excited to be there. And that, you know, came out in my attitude. And a lot of people enjoyed having that around. One thing that I was good at, though, was telling stories. I could share these really funny, fucked up stories that happened to me, and people got a kick out of them. And I always heard throughout my time there, dude, you need to write your stories down. You need to write these stories down and sell them because they're so fucking good. And I said, okay, like, you know, once I lost my hearing and had to come to the realization that I'm probably not going to be working in recording studios anymore, that era of my life is officially going to be over. I said, okay, well, I still need some kind of creative outlet. So writing it is. I want to write. I want to learn how to write my stories down and maybe one day sell them. And that would be awesome. That'll be my new creative outlet. But I didn't know how to write. I was like, how do you start writing a story? So I got on the internet doing exactly what I'm doing right now, learned how to do it. Just do a bunch of research. Google the fuck out of it and just read page after page after page after page and video after video after video. Spent days, weeks, probably months collectively learning about everything I could about writing. Opened up a Word document and started just pulling everything that I was learning into this Word document and then organizing it. And when I was first trying to understand all that goes into a story, I was like, okay, I need to be able to break a story down into elements. pieces of a story that I can identify and build upon, right? Like building blocks, I can say, okay, like building a house, right? Here you have your wood, you have your concrete, or say you have like your foundation, you have your walls, you have your roof, you have this and that, and you all of the materials that go into making a movie. What are those materials? And so I went out learning, like typing in what are the elements of a story, what goes into making a story, what are the basic building blocks of a story. And I got a lot of different answers, kind of like we're doing right now. This is why I bring it up. That's why we're ranting. That's why I decided to rant that. And I enjoy ranting. If you're in with the, if you watch the channel often enough, you're going to see a lot of me ranting. I enjoy it. I just really like this picture right here of me with the close up. You know, I happen to look good with this beard. My beard looks good today. My cutie pie cut it, so it looks pretty good. And so I'm having a good time looking at myself and listening to myself talk. But either way, you know, when you are going to jump into any kind of new discipline, you're going to have to learn what the basic building blocks of that discipline are, and you're going to get different answers like we are right now. This guy, Media and Insider, says, well, cinematography, editing, mise en scène, I think I got it. We're going to say that I got it. We're going to give me the win there. Performance and sounds are the 5 elements, key elements of a film. You know, these folks over at, what was this website? nofilmschool.com said that it was mise en scène, cinematography, editing, sound, and narrative instead of performance. So neither one of them is technically right or more correct than the other. Perhaps they are, but it doesn't really matter to us. We don't really care, because what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, you know what? Let's just say that there's 6 areas of a movie. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say, well, not that necessarily these guys both got it wrong, but that they're both right. Really, narrative is an important part of a story. What is written down in terms of like what dialogue, what the characters are saying. And, you know, I suppose they say dialogue, oh, I'm still on my rant screen. Okay. We'll switch out of it. Rant over. Dialogue goes, and right here, they're putting it under sound. I imagine the other guy will too. You know, what is written as far as the dialogue, what is written as far as the characters, how they're designed, their character arcs, like they're saying right here, that's not something that, character arcs isn't something that goes into cinematography, mise en scène, editing, sound. You know, you're not, you know, that stuff might help translate the character arc. It might help the audience see the character arc better. It might work with the character arc in terms of creating the final product, but it isn't going to show you what the character arc is. The character arc comes from the script. So does the plot structure. The editing can heavily affect the plot structure. How you, the audience, view the plot structure, how you are seeing it, it is going to change what you think the plot of the story is, right? An editor can drastically what the plot of a movie is. But the plot of the movie starts from the screenplay, right? So I think having narrative in there is very legit. I mean, I think that's a very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Well, we're just going to say legit because I can't think of the word. I am a writer, I promise. But yeah, shoot, I lost my train of thought here. The narrative, I think that is a logical thing to put on a list of things that are important to a film, as is performance, for obvious reasons. The actor's performance is a massive aspect that, you know, I didn't notice it at first. Maybe you did and I didn't. Maybe I'm just fucking stupid and you're just super fucking smart guy over here and you were like, well, Tony, I don't see anything on this list that talks about performance of the actor. What the fuck? Maybe you saw that and I didn't. Maybe I'm just stupid. But I didn't notice that at first. That's not on the nofilmschool.com. That's not on their list of things to analyze in a film, which is, you would think, should be on that list, right? So let's hop over here. We're going to pass over his performance for now, and we're going to jump to cinematography. Okay, so when we come back to this video, we're going to talk about cinematography versus performance, and then we'll come back to performance at the ends, and then narrative at the end as well. So Okay, so what is cinematography? Everybody's heard the word cinematography, right? And you don't even have to be a film buff. You can fucking hate movies and you still have heard the word cinematography. You don't know, you might not know what it is, but you've definitely heard it. Everybody's heard it. So what is it? Well, the short, sweet answer is it's the technical choices behind the camera, which isn't the best definition, I would say, but this gives you a good explanation. Again, there's 4 things that go into cinematography, which would be camera angles. For example, that would be a high angle, low angle, tilted angle, shot types like a close-up, a wide shot, a long take, camera movements like pans, zooms, tracking shots, and focus. What's sharp in the focus, what's blurry in the shot, right? So 4 aspects of cinematography. Cinematography would be our second aspect of a film that we want to analyze as budding film critics. And we're going to go ahead and hear what Media Insider has to say about cinematography.
If mise-en-scène and performance make up the visual elements of the film world, then the third key element of film, cinematography, is how it's captured.
No, I mean, a film is something that you don't want any shot to be kind of outside of all the others in a way.
This is primarily all about shot size, be it close-up, mid-shot, wide shot, and so on, and camera movement, be it static, panning, freehand, tracking, and the framing of the mise-en-scène on camera. If film offers us the point of view of the director, what can we learn about how we are being positioned to view the events within? Look a bit deeper, and cinematography also includes factors such as the format of film used, such as IMAX and its corresponding aspect ratio, whether it's been shot in color or monochrome. Even lighting comes under the umbrella of cinematography, which introduces a whole extra list of technical terms which we use to describe the scene. But ultimately, it's all about how the scene is captured and why.
I think there's times to move the camera, there's times to follow a character, and there's times to stay back and allow that character to observe that, the audience to observe that character within the space.
The natural next step from cinematography.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting. I didn't know if you picked up on it, but oh, there was that crackle again. For those of you who are watching my videos on YouTube or live, I apologize for the crackling. Every so often you're going to get a little like that happens. I've worked at it. You know, again, working in recording studios, I'm very familiar with that cracking and all the different things it could be. And I've tried different mic cables. I've tried swapping out mic cables. I tried mic cable placement, so I'm not running over any power cables. Tried various different audio drivers on my PC. And I still don't know what it is. The only 2 options I'm left with it's my brand new spanking interface, my $300 mainstream interface that I bought just for streaming, or this brand new microphone, this $200 Shure microphone that I bought just for streaming. So one of them has some kind of glitch in it. I'm not sure which one it is. Here soon, I'm going to grab an interface from my buddy and who still works in recording studios and try his interface and see if I don't get that. And if it doesn't, then I know it's the interface. I'm going to have to send it back, get a new one because they sent me a shit interface. And if not, then the only other option I have is it's a mic. So I'll swap a mic out then and see what's going on. But for now, you are going to have to deal with it. It's not continuous, as you know. It's not like just throughout the whole video. You get it every few minutes, but it does pop up occasionally. That does happen. So I apologize on behalf of it. Moving back to the video, I don't know if you guys noticed, but he had some extras to add to the category of cinematography, right? He added in what type of film they're shooting with, which is a good consideration. That's super smart. I wouldn't have thought of that. And he added in, black and white. Is it shot in color or black and white? The colors. Again, that's a very interesting consideration that I hadn't thought of. He put lighting in cinematography, whereas No Film School put lighting in mise-en-scène, right? Let's just get on.
Mise-en-scène.
Mise-en-scène. Mise-en-scène. I just got to go back occasionally until I fucking figure it out. All right, sue me. I'm a slow learner. Mise-en-scène. NoFilmSchool.com put mise-en-scène. They put lighting under mise-en-scène instead of putting lighting under cinematography like Media Insider did. Is this really like a big deal? No, it's really not. It's just an interesting thing that I thought I'd point out. again, not really having a lot of knowledge in this particular subject matter, I can't tell you who is correct and who isn't. I can tell you that it doesn't really fucking matter, though. It doesn't. It doesn't matter what, as long as you are being critical or analyzing the lighting in a particular scene. You know, I would say my best guess, not professional guess whatsoever. Okay, disclaimer, I'm not a professional. I would put lighting under mise en scène because the lighting is going to change from scene to scene, and that's the point of mise en scène. Is you're analyzing each scene individually. Each scene is gonna have a different setting, different costumes, different props, different actor movement blocking. The actor's gonna be positioned in different spots. So you're gonna want to analyze, you know, those things differently in each different scene. The mise en scène happens from scene to scene. And lighting would also change with mise en scène. So would cinematography, though. Camera angles, shot types, camera movements, the focus is going to change, you know, but that's going to change not even from scene to scene, right? In one single scene, the camera angles, shot types, camera movements are going to change multiple times, right? So I would just go out on a limb here and give my unprofessional, uneducated guess that lighting probably deserves to be in mise en scène more than anything else, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. As long as you're looking at it and analyzing it, that's all that really matters. Okay. So editing. This guy had editing in his, right? Let's click on what.
So film analysis is largely all about learning how to notice the performance and
editing. Okay, so he had editing on there too. That's what I thought. So let's dive into editing then. So recap: cinematography. That is all the technical choices involving a camera, basically, right? That's including camera angles, shot types, camera movement, focus, and as Media Insider pointed out, that's going to indicate, you know, also include what type of film you're shooting on and the black or white color choices. And then, you know, we can also say lighting if you didn't already put it in mise en scène, right? So moving on, we're going to move into editing of a film. So the editing is how the different shots throughout the film are assembled, how they're put together after the whole film's been shot. Because when you shoot a movie, like, I'm pretty sure I don't need to explain to anybody out there, even those of us who have never shot a movie are well aware that once a movie is shot, it's not shot in chronological order, right? So they take the film, what they shot, they go back to the editing room, pick the best takes, and then assemble those takes into the order of the narrative of the film, the final film that you see. And so that process of taking those shots and putting them together, that process is editing. And editing is going to include things like the types of cuts that they use between different shots, fade cuts, jump cuts, the rhythm and pacing of the editing. That might seem like an abstract characteristic. Like, you're thinking, what is rhythm when it comes to editing? Well, a good example that I can give you of different rhythms in editing is, let's take, for example, so there's a popular show out right now, The Adolescence Show, that's on Netflix. It's popular and controversial and divisive for a lot of different reasons. We're not going to get into that. But each episode is a single continuous shot. There is a new, and better, here's one that I'm more familiar with. There is an awesome horror movie. That one's a more common one that you might be familiar with. As a fan of film or television, you might have seen it. But there is a horror movie that came out, I think last year, a French film called Mads. That was an awesome horror movie. If you haven't seen that horror movie, check it out. I believe it's on Shudder. It's a Shudder original. I'm still waiting for it to come out on Vudu so I can buy it, because it is a really good movie. The entire movie, I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes, is one long continuous shot. Okay, that would be the pacing of editing. There's really no editing happening here because it's one long continuous shot. The editing, very minimal, right? If editing is taking all the different shots and assembling them into the movie, then one long continuous shot in a movie, there's going to be pretty much no editing, right? I imagine somewhere you can find that, but yeah, you know, there's going to be very little editing, right? And so you could even say, like, that's pacing to zero editing, right? Like, that's as slow as editing pacing as you can get, versus really continuous, drastic, fast editing shots, which A good example of that would be Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road has a chaotic editing style that is just absolutely perfect for that movie. I mean, next time, if you haven't watched that movie, go watch that movie. It's an amazing movie. I don't even, just to show, okay, just to put the point out there, I am not ideologically aligned with the ideology that the movie is attempting to push forward. It has its own, what's the word? I don't want to say it has an agenda because that sounds super sinister, but it does have its own ideological bent. It very clearly does. It has an ideological influence, the movie does. I'm not aligned with that ideological influence, and it's still in my top 20 movies ever made. It's such a fucking good movie. And one thing that keeps that movie going is the editing, man. The editing is just out of this fucking world. Absolutely sick. It's so whoa, dude, it's just so fast and chaotic and boom, 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 boom. And it blows your mind. It just keeps you constantly gasping for breath. It's a great movie, and the editing in it is spectacular, but it is a very fast-paced, chaotic kind of editing. So that would kind of illustrate the difference, what rhythm and editing would kind of be like at the two extremes. And then there's that's a dichotomy on two sides of a sliding scale, and then every other movie kind of exists in between that on the scale somewhere, right? Okay, and then editing would also include, in addition to rhythm and pacing and types of cuts, montage, which is stringing shots together to create meaning, right, is the definition of montage. So let's go ahead and pop into Media Insider's idea of what editing is, see what this guy has to say.
The natural next step from cinematography is our fourth key element.
Okay, before we stop, I'm sorry. I know I just started it and I'm already stopping. This movie right here that we're seeing, the roller coaster with Christian Slater, this right here, this is a movie, True Romance, written by Quentin Tarantino, directed by Tony Scott. Awesome movie. Amazing movie, really good action movie, and a really good romance movie too. So if you haven't seen that movie, you need to check that out.
Step from cinematography is our fourth key element of film, editing. This is how individual shots are cut and assembled into scenes, and how scenes are assembled into a film. The order in which shots and scenes are presented to us has the ability to completely change how we interpret them. Just think, every time we cut from one shot
this is the same movie,
we're effectively being offered cause and effect.
True Romance.
It's how we know that this character has cruel intentions.
Oh God. I hate it when people interrupt my YouTube movie unless it's me. I'm the only one that can interrupt
Every
these
time
things.
we cut from one shot to another, we're effectively being offered cause and effect. It's how we know that this character has cruel intentions. Each cut is a cause and effect. It's also evident in the pace of editing, which may, for example, communicate the tension in a scene.
This is
Finally,
not
we
True
have
Romance.
Sound as our last key element.
Okay, so we moved to sound. Okay, so yeah. I think he gave us the same rundown of what editing is. I don't know if he gave us a list of characteristics, did he? I'm going to watch it one more time.
The natural
I was
next
busy
step
talking.
from cinematography is our fourth key element of film, editing. This is how individual shots are cut and assembled into scenes, and how scenes are assembled into a film. The order in which shots and scenes are presented to us has the ability to completely change how we interpret them. Just think, every time we cut from one shot to another, we're effectively being offered cause and effect.
Okay, so he didn't. He didn't give us a list of things to consider in editing. That's perfectly fine. He gave us a really good rundown of it, and also gave us some good little clips out of True Romance. I appreciate that enough. So that's enough for me to appreciate that. Okay, so that's editing. Editing is self-explanatory. Like I said, you don't have to be a filmmaker to know what editing is. Those of us who have never made a film are well aware of what the editing process, not necessarily what it entails, but we know what it is, right? So editing, we're going to throw that on the list of the number 3 thing that you need to consider when doing film analysis behind mise en scène. Oh my God, I'm already fucking it up. Are you tired of me having to fuck this up yet?
Mise en scène.
Mise en scène. Mise en scène. Okay, so those 3 things include mise en scène, cinematography, and editing, right? Those are our first three. Now we're going to go ahead and get into sound. And that was nice how that aligned perfectly with sounds in his video. So let's jump into sound. Okay. So the fourth element of film analysis is going to include sounds, and that is everything you hear, right? Pretty simple. That includes the dialogue, sound effects, and music, which is the score and existing songs. Score, if you don't know, a film score. So I actually have a buddy who's getting into film scoring right now. Shout out to my friend Taylor Franklin at Franklin Music. He's one of the few friends I still have that's rocking it in the music industry, doing good. And he has been trying for a couple of years to get into scoring movies, and he finally just nailed his first gig. I'm super stoked for him. He gets to score, I believe it's a horror movie, which is even more exciting because scores in horror movies are like, they can make or break the movie. You know what I mean? And he's the right man for the job. He's going to do an amazing job. But the score is the music that is made specifically for the movie while you're watching the movie throughout the scene, right? So when you're in like a scary movie, think John Carpenter's Halloween song. That okay, I'm fucking it up, but that's the the Halloween piano roll, right? Think about like you're watching a horror movie and you have the like, okay, Jaws, right? The dun okay, that's the score for the movie. You hear that song, that sound, those sounds that it plays throughout the movie while you're watching, right? You'll have parts of the score. There's a really famous scene in Jaws where Hooper is the character's name. Hooper is diving into the ocean at night because they found a wrecked boat of a local fisherman, and he's going down there to see what caused this boat to capsize. And he goes down there, and while he's rummaging through the boat, he finds a tooth, and we get this music behind him that's really tense, right? It's like super low tones, really tense. You're kind of like on the edge of your seat. You don't hear anything except this music and him breathing in his respirator, so it's really intense. And he pulls the shark tooth out of the boat, and he's holding it, and then the fisherman's dead body falls in the water in front of him, and you get this bling, this like crazy sound. I don't even know how to replicate it, right? I mean, I'm not very good at replicating any of these sounds anyways, but it's this really high pitched like ring sound that happens, and it just fucking scares the balls off you. You jump right out of your seat. Everybody does. You can't help it. Like if you're watching that movie in a dark room and that happens, everybody jumps. And a huge part of that is because of that crazy sound, which is a part of the film score. Okay, it's not a sound effect, it's a part of the film score. That would be what a score is, versus a song. An existing song is a song that you just throw in your movie, like think a popular song that's on the radio that the movie throws in. Okay, that would be a song versus a score. Okay, and then you have sound effects. Again, I know from going to audio school and having briefly worked with some people in a what do they call it? Foley studio. Okay, when you get into sound design for movies, which I very briefly thought about getting into that, but it wasn't like my passion. Music was really what I was passionate about, so I never got deep into getting into sound design for movies. But that is a very what's the word? It can be a potentially lucrative career choice, or at least it was back in 2010. I don't know how it is now, but back then you had four main categories of sound in a movie, which was the music. Let's see, is that correct? Maybe there was five. There was music, sound effects, Foley, and dialogue. There was four. Okay, Foley, or what is it? ADR, I think it was called. It's been a while. I think it was like ADR. Yeah, I think I got that correct. I mean, I might not. I might have completely fucked it up. But either way, there's different, aspects of sound in a film. The music, which they show here, which can be split into a score and existing tracks that are put into the movie. Dialogue, which is obviously the characters speaking to each other. Sound effects would be like the Tyrannosaurus Rex screaming, in a movie, his roar. It would be the thump of the T-Rex's footsteps as he's, in Jurassic Park, Those would be sound effects. And then Foley would be a different category of sound effects, which would be kind of the minuscule stuff that's happening behind the scenes, which would be stuff like, it would be like they call something group walla, is people talking in the background. That's what group walla means. It's just people talking in the background. It's fuck, what's the word I'm looking for? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's unintelligible. Whew. Man, that was more difficult than mise en scène. It is unintelligible conversations happening in the background of a scene. It would be footsteps of people walking. It would be the ruffling of their jacket. In audio school, we had to shoot Foley for a scene from Avatar, the movie Avatar with the blue people. There's a scene where one of them's running through the forest with a gun, and we had to, for my audio class, we had to record and then edit all of the Foley into that scene. So the sound of the gun shaking was actually, we had a big, God, I can't believe I'm killing it. We had a big pipe wrench, a big monkey wrench. And we would take the monkey wrench, we'd loosen it up, and then we'd shake it throughout. We would have the movie playing in the studio. You'd have your headphones on, and you would shake the monkey wrench to simulate the sound of a gun, the metal from the gun clanking against the vest, right? So, yeah, that would be all included in sounds. And all of these things are things that you do want to consider. Consider Foley effects in a scene like, again, what's the name? I'm blanking on all of the names of these movies right now. Chalk it up to being overexcited to talk about it. Lord of the Rings, okay? The war scenes in Lord of the Rings where you have literally hundreds of thousands of orcs and troops just colliding throughout this scene. There is so many, if you watch that scene, there are so many sounds of spears, arrows, metal hitting metal, swords hitting metal, heads, swords hitting flesh, people screaming. All of that is people roaring and battle cries. All that is happening in the background. That would all be another example of Foley. And all of that is really fucking important. That puts you in that scene, man. That the sounds of war are what puts you in the scene. Think of gunshots in a more modern day war movie, think of the bombs and the guns going off in the opening scene. I know it's not the opening scene, but everybody calls it the opening scene to Saving Private Ryan, right? The Normandy Doomsday, D-Day beach scene. All of those guns and bombs going off, man, it is a huge part of putting you in the moment. So, yeah, sound is very important. It is something you want to analyze. So let's go ahead and see what the Media Insider has to say about that, if he concurs.
And finally, we have sound as our last key element. Be it diegetic or non-diegetic, music, or the score, is perhaps the most obvious part of sound for us to notice, but of course it also includes everything in the soundscape. Ambient sound, vocal quality, sound effects, everything you can hear is making meaning. So now we know what the 5 key elements of film are, how do we go about putting it into practice? Well,
okay. We'll get to that here in a minute. But yeah, so pretty self-explanatory, right? Sound kind of self-explanatory there. Neither one of them mentioned like Foley, the difference between Foley and special effects, things like that. So I got heartburn. I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old. I ate 2 pieces of my Cutie Pie's delicious fried chicken that she made last night, and now I got heartburn because of it. So, but yeah, anyways, moving on. Sounds is, a very important aspect of it, right? And those are some things to consider when you're analyzing the sound of a movie. How's the dialogue sound? He mentioned like vocal quality, like how is the vocals? I would probably throw that more into performance, but he mentions, the dialogue, it is all your fault, Cutie Pie. It's because it was so salty. I'm just kidding. No, I love the saltiness. I take that back immediately. In fact, when I'm done watching this, I'm going to go get some of that fried chicken, all right? I'm already starving for it. So the sound includes dialogue, sound effects, music, Foley, Music includes the score and existing songs. No, don't throw that in the trash. Save me a few pieces before you throw it in the trash, okay? It's worth the heartburn, all right? So, I'll take that over a microwave pizza every day, and you know how much I love those fucking frozen pizzas, okay? So, no, it was my cutie pie makes some damn good fried chicken, everybody, all right? So, not putting that on her. Okay, now, that fifth element is the element that these two sources that we have kind of tend to disagree on. And really, you would want to we'll just do it right now. Let's just come over here. Let's just type in 5 elements of film. And let's see, this is Pinoy Sandbox. They say it is narrative, cinematography, sound, mise en scène, and editing. Grandfixer.com says it's narrative, cinematography, sound, mise en scène, and editing. 5 critical elements. This is filmmakingelements.com. What are the 5 critical elements of making a movie? They say, this is something completely different. It's a major character, a core problem. This is more talking about like the actual narrative, right? 5 elements of film. How to critically. This is Prezi. I don't know what Prezi is. Sound, editing, see full transcript. Sound, editing, mise en scène, cinematography, and narrative. So it actually sounds, we were able to come to a conclusion there pretty quickly. It actually sounds like no film school actually takes the cake for having got it right. Narrative is actually the 5th element, not performance. Again, I still agree with Media Insider that performance is something you should probably looking at while critiquing a film, correct? I mean, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Disagree, feel free to disagree if you want, but if you disagree with me on this topic, you're wrong. Performance absolutely should be something that you're looking at when you're analyzing a film, and I think most of us do anyways. I think that's one of the things for a lot of people is the easiest thing to analyze in a film, right? Now, not for me. I'm going to throw a disclaimer out there. I am horrible at analyzing actors' performances. I never did any acting myself. I think I was in a couple plays when I was a kid, and they were all pretty embarrassing performances. I'm not an actor, and so when I watch an actor, I'll be like, yeah, no, that was great. I thought they did a good job. And then every person I know, the whole fucking internet will be like, that fucking acting sucked. And I'll be like, oh, shit, okay, maybe it wasn't good. My bad, holy shit. And so, yeah, I've learned after a certain amount of times that happening that it is, in fact, not me. And it is, in fact, me and not everybody else. I just really suck at being able to see bad acting from good acting. I'm not good at analyzing that particular part of film. But I think it still deserves to be on the list. It's unfortunate that the Media Insider didn't put it on his list so that we could kind of get a little bit more of a dive in a narrative using a video. But that's okay. The narrative, what does it consist of? Well, that's the story and its construction. And that it would include plot structure, character development, I would say like thematical elements. I would say a lot of symbolism goes into that. Symbolism is another one. We are actually, and it's okay for us to not really just have this tiny little piece of narrative, because I'm going to be going over narrative at the end of the month. Let me pull up my handy dandy note card. The very last stream of the month. Of this month, April, the last Friday, I will be going over, so I don't know if the last Friday is in April, but I do this in 4-week intervals. I'm going to assume that it is. But the last Friday of the month, I'm going over elements of storytelling. Okay, so and what I mean by when I'm talking about storytelling, I do mean writing a story, not shooting a story, and these are like I had mentioned earlier. Okay, I'm going to do it. You can't stop me. We're back to the rant screen. So when I was talking earlier, I mentioned how when I first wanted to learn how to write, I did a deep dive into the elements of writing, right? To figure out how do I parcel out all the different aspects of a story that I need to learn how to manage in order to write a story, right? What are the building blocks of a story? And I came to a whole bunch of different answers for that. I wrote them all down and then came to my own conclusion. And I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. I have all of my notes saved on this computer. That Friday, the last Friday of the month, I will be going over what I found to be the main elements of a story, which is a narrative. That's what this is. Essentially, the story is the narrative. All right. And the elements that I found, it's actually 10 elements of a story, 5 main elements in a story, and then 5 secondary elements of a story is how I split my list up. And the 5 main elements of a story is plot, right? That's the first one. Oh, okay, we can get out of my rant screen. I just like it because I like seeing my head on TV. So the first element is plot, which also happens to be their first element listed here. The second most important element is characters and character development, which is the second aspect, the second characteristic they plot right there. Setting goes into that. Again, setting would definitely be more included in mise en scène. Pretty sure I nailed that. Mise en scène. Yep. I'm pretty sure I deserve an extra piece of fried chicken for nailing that. And cinematography would probably have a lot to do with this, more to do with the setting. But the setting is still included in the narrative. How do they know to set this particular scene up in a jungle? Because the story needs it to be in a fucking jungle. It's first written on the screenplay. It's first written as a part of the narrative. Yo, this scene happens in the jungle, bitch. And then from that point, they decide, okay, how are we going to set up the scene in the jungle, which would be the mise en scène? And then how are we going to shoot this scene in the jungle, which would be the cinematography? But setting still plays an important role in the narrative. It starts there. The fourth most important aspect of a narrative is conflict. And then the fifth would be themes or thematic ideals, which they have right there. Conflicts, we actually, that accidental page that I popped up right here, it said, the 5 elements, no, that was Prezi. 5 most critical elements of filmmaking, what makes a good movie. Couldn't help but notice the first one was a major character. The second one was a core problem, a conflict. A conflict is very important to a story. If you don't have any conflict, you don't really have a watchable story. You don't have a story that anybody gives a shit about. You need to have conflict in a story. And then the secondary elements, there's 5 of them, would be the point of view, which would be whose point of view are we telling the story from, which again, this applies to writing a story as in like a book, a novel or a short story. It still applies to a movie. Movies have specific point of views that they reference. Whoever's point of view you're seeing the movie through is going to be your protagonist, right? For the most part. Okay, tone is another part of writing, and this is more specific to writing, although tone still has some play in movies. Mood is a separate thing, and I'll dive into the difference between those at a later date, the last Friday of the month. Style and literary devices and symbolism. So, you can probably take most of those last 2 or 3 out, except for symbolism. Symbolism does play a pretty big role in filmmaking. You're going to see a lot of that. I would throw symbolism in with thematic elements on this particular list. But those are all things that you need to be considered when you are analyzing the narrative of a movie, right? What is the plot of the movie? Does it make sense? Are there any plot holes? Is it a good plot or is it a really shitty put together plot? There's the famous, there is a famous video of the South Park guys that has been going around forever and ever because it was shot years ago when they were teaching a screenplay writing class, I think in Colorado at the University of Colorado in Boulder or something like that. And they say, every scene, every beat of a story, which is different than a scene, but every beat of the story needs to be connected by the words because, so, or therefore, right? Those are the 3 I use. There's different alternate, like you can alter that slightly. It could be but, because, so, or before are the 3 main, you don't ever want to have the beats of a story go and then, right? So this happens in the movie and then this happens. You don't want the plot to be connected by those words. The plot needs to be connected as such, like this happened in the story because this happens, or this happened in a story, but then this happens, or this happened in a story, therefore, or so, this happened in the story. Okay, see the difference between those connections? One implies an arbitrary randomness. This happened, and then this happens. 2 completely different things. They're not interconnected. They don't have to be. I got in my car to drive and then boom, a fucking plane just landed and exploded on my house and I died. Those 2 things aren't connected. The plane didn't crash into my house because I just got in my fucking car to go to work, right? That's a shitty story. There's nothing connecting one beat to the next. But I got in my car and drove down the driveway. And because I did that and didn't look in my rearview mirror, I got in my car, drove down the driveway, and didn't look in my rearview mirror. And because I didn't do that, I accidentally ran the neighbor over. That is what you want in your story. The beats need to be connected by those specific, they have to be connected to each other through a cause and effect relationship. So does the plot have a cause and effect relationship from beat to beat to beat? If you don't know what a beat is, we'll go over that at a later date, but it is important to know for the purpose of analyzing a narrative in either a movie or a story, a novel. So you need to know the plot, understand the characters and their character development. Does each character have a character arc? Do they stay in character, or either the characters doing things that aren't characteristic of that character, or is each character identifiable? Do you support the character that the movie clearly wants you to support? If this movie wants you to be sympathetic towards the protagonist, are you sympathetic towards the protagonist? That's a flaw that I actually see in a lot of modern day movies, is they put out a protagonist and the protagonist fucking sucks. Like, I don't like them at all. I don't give a shit what happens to them. You know, we get halfway through the movie and they're like, oh no, the protagonist might die. Oh, and it's meant to create conflict, create tension. And I'm like, so what? Let the fucker die. I don't care. I don't like them. They're an asshole. Like, I don't give a shit what happens to the protagonist, right? You know, so are your characters fulfilling the role that they're intended to fulfill? If you want us to be sympathetic towards the protagonist, then they better be likable. Okay, people don't tend to have sympathy for people they don't like, usually. You know, there is exceptions. But, and then, you know, you want to analyze the conflict of the story. Is it a meaningful conflict? Is it a conflict that increases tension? Is tension constantly increasing from this conflict? Or are they really easy to solve conflicts? Are they silly conflicts? You know, are they stupid? And it's like, that's not really like a conflict. You know, somebody spilt milk and started crying over it. That's not a reason to cry, bitch. This isn't a conflict. You know, is it, you know, you just hit your fucking neighbor and backing out of the driveway and then drove away and his wife saw you. Now that's conflict. There's some conflict here, right? You got somebody who's pissed because you just killed somebody they loved. You got somebody who drove away, you know, like there's a lot of conflict to explore there. And then thematic elements. What's the theme of the movie and are they getting that point across? And again, this is something that I've seen a lot of movies struggle with lately, in my humble opinion. I'll watch a movie and be like, what the fuck was the point of that? Like, what was the theme? Like, what were they were getting at something. I know they were. But if this is what they're getting at, they did a really bad job of doing that. You know, because I'm not sure if that's actually what they meant to get at. And if that is what they get at, they didn't prove their point very well. You know, so what are they expressing the theme correctly and accurately in a way that the audience understands what the theme of the story is, right? You know, so analyze all those things when you're analyzing a narrative. And then we don't have performance on this list, but I do think it's worth adding to our list. You and me, here, all of us here at Cool Beans Hot Stuff, because we're such cool motherfuckers, we're going to have 6 elements of a film that we're going to analyze. Not 5, like everybody else. I don't care how anybody else does it. If film school told you that, well, your film school was wrong. And I was right. I mean, no, don't take that in. You know, that sounds like a shitty thing to say. But performance is definitely worth considering. So we're going to listen to what Media Insider has to say about performance, okay? Any minute now.
This leads us very nicely onto the second key element of film, performance. When we look beyond the aesthetic of characters, how is verbal, and perhaps more importantly, non-verbal language being used to communicate? Is their performance over the top or subtle? Are they open or closed? All of the infinite ways that actors interpret their roles in collaboration with the director are another layer of meaning maker for the audience.
The one part of the story that I believed was that he experienced childhood trauma. And so going into that research and seeing the effect that it has on somebody and how they perceive the world, basically he's in this highly reactive state in which he perceives and looks for threat everywhere.
If mise-en-scène and performance make up the visual elements of the film world, then the third key element of film, cinematography, is how it's captured.
Okay, we can stop this right there. So yeah, performance, self-explanatory, right? It's the actor's performance. How is their acting ability? How are they delivering their lines? What, you know, you want to look at body language, tone of voice when they're delivering a line. You want to look at, you know, the acting, all of that, right? So is it believable? Is it corny? Is it not good? You know, when they're pretending to be shocked, do they really come across as shocked? And are they filling their role? Are they believable in their role? You know, Joaquin Phoenix was very believable as the Joker. He did a great job at portraying a dude who had mental illness. Way fucking good. He fucking killed that shit. Some people don't. You know, you can watch movies where people, you're supposed to be mentally ill, but they're not coming across as mentally ill. They're not coming across, you know, like how the movie clearly wants them to come across as, right? So that's another part of film to analyze, is performance of the actors. So there is our 6 aspects of film analysis. We got mise en scène. I'm pretty sure I got that now. I'm pretty sure I'm killing that shit, right? Like, you know, I'm a fucking pro at French now. I might as well just take up French. I basically speak French now, right? Let's just make sure.
Mise en scène.
Mise en scène. Yep, I killed it. I'm pretty confident in my ability to speak French now. So mise en scène, cinematography, editing, sounds, narrative, and performances. 6 key aspects of a film to analyze when you're analyzing a film, right? So from this point forward, it would be fun to finish. We can get out of this guy now. Well, we will finish this video going into the steps of how to analyze a movie. He's got 4 steps for us. Media Insider does, and these, seem to be his personal steps. This is what he thinks you should do when analyzing a movie. I did research steps to analyzing a movie, and again, I got such a massive clusterfuck of different answers that it didn't appear to me that there was standardized steps of analyzing a movie. Just a lot of different people who had a lot of different ideas on best how to do that. And in situations like that, I always find that it is best to go about it in whatever way you think is best. What are your steps for analyzing a movie? We'll go over the Media Insider's steps to analyzing a movie, because I think it's very awesomely done. I think he's got a lot of great points that he makes, or we wouldn't watch the video, obviously. He's got a lot of good points that he makes for his steps that he takes to research, or to, I just said that because the word research is on the screen in big letters. There's 4 steps that he takes to analyzing a movie. I think it's a good place to start, but you'll want to take these 4 steps for yourself, analyze a movie tonight when you're done watching this, and see if it works for you. Maybe do a little bit of research on your own. Maybe I'll do a little bit of research with you at the end of the stream. We'll look up other people's steps for researching a film. And then you can kind of create your own steps to analyzing a film. It's really what I'm getting at. But this is a good place to start. We're going to go with the Media Insider's 4 steps to analyzing a film. And then after that, we're going to hop back to No Film School. And we're going to go through different types of film analysis that exist. He gives us a handful of different types of film analysis that exist. We're going to go over that, and we're going to go over the difference between these types of film analysis and film theory, because they're different. And then we will take up the rest of the time. I don't think we're going to have time for these last 2 videos. We can probably cancel it for these other Media Insider videos, but that's okay. We will take up as much time as we need to go over the Learn Film Analysis in 20 Films video, also by Media Insider, because this was a pretty entertaining YouTube video. It was really awesome. I really liked what it had to say. So we will go over that too. We will do all of that after the break, because I'm going to go upstairs. I'm overdue to kiss my cutie pie. So I'm going to go give her a kiss, and then I also got to take a pee and wash my mouth out with some Listerine to kind of help with that throat thing that I got. So while I'm doing that, you guys go ahead and chill and enjoy this really awesome Be Right Back screen. Okay. Testing 1, 2. Yep. I hear myself. Hear my handsome voice. Okay, give me a second. I gotta get some more water. I'm parched over here. Ooh, strawberry watermelon. Okay. Got my water. Got my kisses from Cutie Pie, and I'm ready to go. We got about 30 minutes left in the stream, so we got more than enough time to go over everything we want to go over. We might go over a little over on this stream, but that's okay. I enjoy talking about film, so I can do this all night long if I had to. Let's go over the Media Insider's 4 steps for analyzing a film.
The first thing I get my film students to do is a bit of background reading to help us figure out what the director's motivation behind the film was. Don't get me wrong, there's an awful lot to be said for going into a film absolutely blind. Part of the beauty of all art is interpretation. But if we're going to analyse film academically, it's worth doing a bit of homework first to help us identify how the 5 key elements of film are going to be used to construct meaning, and consider the context of when the film is set, but also when it was made.
Okay.
Belfast is...
Stop there. Thank you. So, I do have an opinion on this that is slightly different from Media Insiders, which is fine. It's just an opinion. Everybody has different opinions. And for the record, he is a film teacher. I don't know exactly what he teaches, but it sounds like he's said it in a few of his videos. It looks like he teaches film theory. So he's a professional and I am not. So take it for what it is. All right. This is just my unprofessional opinion coming from somebody who has taught nobody anything in their lives. Well, for the most part, and not anything regarding film anyways. But so I have an opinion on this particular idea of going into a film blind versus doing research beforehand. I personally like to go into the film blind if I'm going to actually sit and analyze the film. It's kind of impossible. Nowadays, when I'm watching a movie, a lot of times I'm just watching it for entertainment value. And my cinnamon nicotine pouch is getting spicy. A lot of times, if I'm just watching a film to watch a film for enjoyment, I will absolutely read reviews on the film beforehand. I will get an idea of what the audience thinks of the film, and then get an idea of what critics like or don't like about the film to see if it's right for me. I will absolutely spend 10-15 minutes doing that before I waste money buying a film on a streaming service or anything like that. And that's my personal preference. I don't think everybody has to do that. I don't think that you need to do that. A lot of people just love, my Cutie Pie just loves jumping in blind to everything, right? She just scrolls through the streaming service, picks something that looks good, and then just watches it. And I myself don't do so much of that. I have my own particular reasons for doing that, which I won't get into, but that's only when I'm watching a film for entertainment purposes. When I actually want to analyze a film, I do want to go into it blinds with no reviews and no research done beforehand. And then, I'll hear things maybe about the film. Usually I've heard something about how amazing it is, and that's why I need to watch it. So I've heard things about it, but I haven't done any research on it. And I watch it blinds, and then I'll go back and do the research, and then I'll go back and watch it again. Not condone. I believe that the best way to go about analyzing anything is to do it in multiple passes. That's the reality. I do it. It's the same thing with editing, whether I'm editing a song or I'm editing a story. And it's the same thing when I'm listening to a song with a critical ear. Like I said earlier, I'll listen to a song 5-6 times. And every single pass, I'm listening to something different about the song. And it's the same with when I'm reading a story and critiquing a story that somebody wrote, which I do that. I would say kind of semi-professionally. At one point in time, I was getting paid to do it, but mostly I just do it for fun online. There's a couple different critiquing websites that you can go to where you can critique other people's writing before it gets published. And you do it for free on most of them. And I've absolutely done that. I was just doing that last month. Next month, I'm going to be doing that again. Whenever I'm about to edit a story of my own, I'll spend a couple weeks critiquing other people's stories to kind of get me in that editing mindset. And I'll do multiple passes on their story. I'll read the story and then get my general idea of, okay, what I liked, didn't like, and then go back through the story with a critical eye for certain things happening in it. And I might end up reading the story 3 or 4 times before I finally written down everything that I think that they could do better or change, or what's awesome, what doesn't work, what is, works great, whatever it is, right? And I recommend doing that with movies too. If you really want to analyze a movie correctly, you need to watch it multiple times. So watch it once right off the bat, just for the entertainment purposes. See if you enjoy it. See what captures your attention, what makes you go, oh my God, that was amazing. If there's anything in the movie that makes you stop and think, ooh, I don't know if I like that, make a note of those things, and then go do your research on the movie, why they made the movie, what the context behind it was, like he was saying, the historical context behind where it was shot and where it was set, and then apply all of that knowledge to a second previewing of the movie. That's how I say that it should be done. What do I know? I'm just a fucking guy on Twitch, though, so.
It is a city of stories, and particularly at the end of the 1960s, it went through an incredible, tumultuous phase in its history.
In the case of Belfast, to truly appreciate Branagh's ideas, you need to have some understanding of the Troubles in Northern Ireland in 1969, and also of Branagh's childhood in Belfast, which is nostalgically reflected in the film's celebration of the people and the city and the family above all else.
Well, I'm from there. I was born in Belfast and I lived there till I was 9, and the story of the film is really about something that happened to me when I was 9 years old.
There are a few ways you can go about this previewing research. I like to watch Q&As with the director, or perhaps even listen to Mark Kermode's review on his podcast. Approaching our first viewing of the film with this information in mind will help focus you on how this theme is being constructed. So now it's time.
For him, first step is research. Researching the director, the filmmakers, all involved, watching Q&As with them, getting an idea of the historical, cultural context where it was shot, the historical setting of the story itself, and as much information as you can about the film and what it's supposed to be meaning and going for.
Time to watch. I personally recommend avoiding the temptation to take notes in your first screening. Give the film your full attention.
Why is everybody putting up their ads in 2010? Like, it's 2025, guys. Just use Pi. This Chrome extension takes 5 seconds to set up.
Okay.
No wonder you brought us to this. It's educational for the boys.
After it's time to reflect on the film and start properly analysing, and to use an appropriate metaphor, I think there are 2 different lenses we can look at it. One is through a wide angle, looking at the film holistically, and applying the 5 key areas to help us describe the film's aesthetic broadly. And 2, by switching to a close-up and examining several key sequences in far greater depth. Let's take a quick look at Belfast through that wide angle lens. Across the film, the camera work is incredibly realist, evident in the choice of shooting in monochrome, but also the way most scenes favour wide-angle static shots, with a full depth of field that could easily have been taken from a late 60s Path documentary. This also allows the actors and their performance to take centre stage by keeping an objective view of the film's world. These performances are incredibly naturalistic, using language and physicality to very subtly express themselves.
I'm always saying to your man there, what's yours is mine and what's mine's me own.
Thanks, Granny.
The primary perspective throughout the film comes in the form of the fairly restricted view of the main star, Buddy, who's played by Jude Hill. In this sense, the troubles and the conflict unveiling around him is actually the backdrop to far more relatable childhood concerns like school crushes, playing with friends, and potentially losing loved ones. In terms of mise-en-scène, the overall look of the film immediately identifies this as a working-class area of the 1960s. Cars, buildings, and clothing are all based on historical context rather than being stylized or impressionist. The houses are packed a little too close together, which makes the neighborhood feel communal, like a family, and at the same time, slightly crowded and less affluent. The set was designed to be slightly tall to encourage our perspective of the child. To describe the edit throughout the film, it's fairly slow and unintrusive, which again causes minimal interruption to the film's reality, and between scenes seamlessly jumps between periods of time which could be weeks or months, giving us the sense that these are a collection of memories from the childhood of Buddy, almost like he's looking back on this period of his life, and these are the bits that stand out. In terms of sound, we have a non-diegetic soundtrack provided by Belfast's own Van Morrison, a further nod to the city's rich culture, and one that complements Buddy's slightly innocent perspective of such a difficult time in Northern Ireland's history.
We'll be getting, I don't know if you picked up on that word, non-diegetic. We'll be getting into that next week when we talk about the 8 elements of film theory. Again, like I said, we'll be going over more or less these same 5 elements of film analysis plus 3 more. When we get into sound, there's a thing, dialogic. Shoot, I already forgot the word. Diegetic and non-diegetic sounds. We'll be going over what those 2 things mean next Friday.
We also have the very realist diegetic sound, which, like the cinematography, is intended to add authenticity to the film. Street ambience and real-world news excerpts help to remind audiences that this fictional family's story is set against very real events. We could go on, but as you can see, by applying the 5 key areas holistically, you get a general sense of the aesthetic and the construction of the film as a whole. But now, if we zoom in on a key scene, we can apply the key elements of film far more specifically. Let's take a look at...
So I just want to stop and reiterate real quick before we get into this 4th step. First step was to do your research, understand where the movie's coming from, why it was made, who's making it, and for what purpose, all the context behind it. Step 2 is the actual screening. Also important to note that he advocated for not running through your first screening making notes, just watch it for the sake of watching it. And then 3rd step is to analyze the movie holistically, which from what he means by holistically is as a whole. Right? So analyze the movie as a whole, take these 5 key elements and analyze how they're interacting with each other throughout the movie to create the entire theme, the theme that this entire movie is trying to go for. And now this 4th step,
at the incredibly memorable opening sequence of the film,
is scene analysis.
To a series of wide crane and drone shots of modern-day Belfast. Before we meet any of the ensemble cast, we're introduced to the main star, the city itself. We see landmarks and buildings of great cultural significance like the Titanic Museum, Belfast Castle, and the old dockyards. The message here is clear. Belfast is thriving and proud. We are accompanied by an upbeat original song by Van Morrison. Then the title for the film finally appears as we reach the suburbs of row after row of terraced houses, where we will spend the majority of the film. This is the heart of Belfast. You won't have missed that we begin in colour, immediately placing us in the present, but also allowing us to see the dawn. A bright new Belfast has moved past the troubles, and we see this in just how saturated the colour is. Our transition into the monochrome that we see for the rest of the picture is seamless. There is no cut as we crane over one of the piece walls, which effectively bridges time as we stay in the same place.
Oh, that is cool.
It feels very much as though the following film is taking place on the very same streets we just saw in colour, but the black and white immediately ages the footage and makes it feel raw and realistic. We are immediately invited to the tightly knit community where everyone on the street knows each other. Neighbours stand outside their doors chatting, and as a group beckon for the main character to come back home for dinner, there is a sense of community, and we are part of it, as the lack of any cutting suggests. There's a real sense of calm and presence and activity, and we take it all in with a controlled freehand wide shot that takes in every part of the set and the characters. The performance of the entire cast is very naturalistic and understated, and nowhere is this more evident than in the main character Buddy, who we first meet while he's play fighting dragons using a wooden sword and a dustbin lid. His youthful nature is carefree and innocent. Listen to the way he speaks to his neighbours without a care in the world.
Hello, Mrs. Ford.
Have you been fighting any dragons?
Only a couple.
I ain't got a couple in my house.
Was that right, Mr. West?
That's so
Can you
cute.
lend us a shield, buddy?
I'll see what I can do.
Say hello to your daddy for me, will you?
Will do.
Buddy?
We are abruptly stopped in our tracks with an orbiting mid-shot that tracks around Buddy as the troubles begin. This innocent expression from just moments ago is replaced by genuine confusion when armed Protestants march around the corner. By framing them out of focus in the distance, they aren't given individual identities. They are fellow Irishmen, indistinguishable from those who live on this street. Each time we pass Buddy in an orbit, we see his expression change to concern, and as the sound becomes muffled until it reaches utter silence, a Molotov is thrown and Buddy's face becomes a picture of absolute terror. The slow meandering pace of the previous wide shots of the community are replaced by rapid chaotic handheld mid-shots and close-ups that create a very sudden sense of panic. This only works because of the contrast of what we had before. Buddy cries out for his mum, and suddenly the toy weapons from the previous scene are being used as defensive items against stones.
Oh, jeez.
Clearly violence in the real world is not like the imagining of Buddy a moment ago, and his whole reality in this moment has shifted.
Don't move! Well!
We
Man,
could
that's
go on,
intense.
but this demonstrates how we can analyze film from two different perspectives. The wide shot, talking holistically and about the aesthetic as a whole, and then close up on a beat-by-beat basis. And if you think back to our original question, how does a film communicate its major themes and ideas using the 5 key elements of film? If you follow the 3 steps, you should find the more you practice the skill, the more you'll find yourself analyzing without even trying, and you'll appreciate film on a whole new level. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a huge shout out to Dave Dunlap, my first ever YouTube member, and encourage you to let me know what films
That's
you'd
cool.
recommend for analysis in the comments below.
Shout
As
out to
always,
Cutie
thank you
Pie,
very much for watching.
my first
and I'll
Twitch
see you
member.
next time.
Actually, I think it was your brother, Cutie Pie, but we're not going to tell him that. Okay. So yeah, there you have it. So there's Media Insider's 4 steps to analyzing a film. Okay. Start with research about the film, then do an initial screening of the film, no taking of notes, and then review the film holistically as a whole. How do these 5 key aspects of film combine to create the film itself and communicate the themes? And then a scene in-depth, what did he call it? A scene analysis. All right, go through the most important scenes of the film and analyze. Now, I want to pull this slide up again. How does a film communicate its major themes and ideas using the 5 key elements of film? This is a very important question to have when analyzing a film. I can't stress that enough. I think that whenever I am critiquing somebody else's story online, which I've been doing that for years, and I usually get a lot of good feedback from my critiques. I happen to feel like I'm pretty dang good at critiquing, at least critiquing stories. Now, I'm trying to transfer that into critiquing and reviewing films, but I always have written down how does this story communicate its meaning, which more or less is the same thing it's saying here. How does this film communicate its major themes and ideas using the 5 key elements of film? You want to have this question in mind when you're actually sitting and taking notes and reviewing the film. I definitely advocate for that. Just have it written on the top of the page of your notes. Again, my idea of how to generally go about reviewing a movie is slightly different. I go in with just first step is one entertainment run through just for the sake of watching it. Just watch it to see what happens. See if you like the film. See if you even want to go farther with analyzing it. A lot of times you'll sit down to analyze a film because people have told you it's good. Burping like crazy. And then you'll watch it and you'll be like, I don't like this film, and I don't want to watch this film 4 more times to analyze it. And if that's the case, then you're probably better off just not analyzing it, right? You can say, hey, I didn't like the film. Maybe if you want to, as an exercise, analyze the film just to see analyze what you didn't like about it. Why is this film not hitting it for you? That's a really good practice. But if it's a film that you despise so much that you can't watch it a few more times, then that's a good time to just say, no, I'll go analyze a different film. Right? So give yourself a sort of initial test run through the film just to see if it's entertaining and if you can watch it 4 more times. Right? And so do that initial run through and then do the research behind the film. And then once you got a whole bunch of research, I think it's a good idea to write that research down, save it, have it with you so you can kind of reference it as you're watching the film, right? Especially if there's a lot of it. Take notes on the different Q&As that you're watching, the articles that you're reading about it. Take notes where, write down historical context, historical setting, what was happening in the historical setting, what was the director's intentions, all that good stuff. Write it all down so you can, memorize it so you have it there next to you when you're watching the film. And then doing the actual run-throughs. And for me, I do the research and then dive right in to analyzing the film. And I think it's a great idea to analyze it holistically and then analyze it on a much smaller, finer detail level. And I will tell you why that is. When it comes to editing a story, I use a very similar setup. That's very highly advocated for in almost every class that I've taken on storytelling, writing, literature, particularly if it covers editing. You got I always forget the fucking term. Oh my God. I'm going to have to get the name of it for you. It kills me. But you have essentially big picture editing where the first 5 or 6 steps of the editing process, you're editing all big picture stuff. Okay. Focusing on the big picture. And then as the editing process continues, you go down into little picture editing the finer details, which in the context of a story, big picture editing would be like the plot, the character arcs, and point of view, making sure that this all is good. You're hitting all your story beats. The plot makes sense. The characters have quality character arcs. They're all acting as themselves. Characterization is on point throughout the story. And then slowly you start whittling down to the finer details, which would be things like editing your prose, editing your grammar, editing your sentences, sentence structure, things like that. So I like that idea that Media Insider has of reviewing the film from a big picture standpoint and then going back and do another view. He didn't say expressly to review it holistically one time and then rewatch it a second time through for smaller scenes. I don't know if you necessarily need to do that. I think if you watched it initially and with no notes, which I do advocate for, I think watching it the first time, not taking any notes, just enjoying the film, see what you like about it. You're making mental notes of the things that really stand out to you that you will review later on. Then do your research, then come back and with your notepad and watch the film from a holistic viewpoint. How do these 5, for us 6 key elements of film contribute to how does the film communicates its major themes and its ideas? How do they contribute to it? And then go back through and you can either watch it a third time or just go through and pick the specific scenes that you really, really liked. If you really wanted to be thorough, you go through, watch it a third time. Make sure you got the holistic review correct. Any things that you want to add to it, just a second holistic review. Plus, that third time through, pick out 2 or 3 scenes that you really want to focus on for in-depth scene review. And then go back a 4th time and watch those specific scenes and do your scene reviews. So that is my basic idea of how to go through a film. I did pull up while I was on break some other people's ideas. Again, like I said, I researched this. What are other people's ideas for how you should, the steps of reviewing a film? And so AI threw up one for us to analyze a movie, follow these steps, investigate the movie's background, do the research. That's number 1. Think about the story arc and how it unfolds, engage with the writing, and consider the impact on the overall film, judge the acting, and then analyze the lighting and camera techniques used in cinematography. Consider the soundtrack, examine the trappings, which include costumes, decor, props, discuss and debate the film with others to gain new perspectives, then write a review of the analysis, take all your ideas, put it together. That's a lot of extra steps. That's 9 steps there from our AI. We got a WikiHow article right here. Let's throw that up. That is 1, watching the movie, your first step. 2, watch alone or quiet with a friend. What part 1 is watching the movie. Okay, analyze it beforehand. Don't do a ton of research beforehand. You want to go into the movie and let it make its impression on you. See, I kind of advocate for that too. So, but knowing some basics about the movie. Okay, then 2, watch the movie alone or with a very quiet friend. You need to focus in depth on the movie so that you can write a good analysis later, and it's best to do that without any distractions. 3, watch all in one sitting. Unlike television shows, movies are meant to be seen all at once. If you interrupt the flow of the movie to get a snack or run around the block, you won't have the experience the creators intended you to have. Step 4, take a few notes. If you aren't in the dark theater, you can scribble down a few observations to yourself as the movie unfolds. Include major plot points, crucial or repeated lines, particularly notable shots. 5, write down all your thoughts afterwards. While the credits are rolling and your brain is still fresh, record everything that struck you about the film or felt significant. You don't have to organize these thoughts into categories yet. Just make a point of focusing on things you thought were interesting or emphasized by the filmmakers. 6, wait, then look over your thoughts. Take a moment to breathe. After a day or so, review the notes that you took during and after the movie. Think about any of these things you focused on. Looks like their expert agrees. After you've taken a few notes on the movie, leave it for a few days, then revisit them. Any strong emotions that you felt right after the movie have probably dissipated, and you might even feel the opposite from how you did right after the movie. This is true. This is particularly when you get into a divisive movie, like we brought up Adolescence earlier, a lot of people are divisive about that particular movie because of they have different emotions, incites different emotions in different people. A lot of people would be tempted to watch a movie like that and say, fuck this movie sucks, blah, 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 and just write a bunch of nasty shit. A lot of times it's better to just let it breathe for a few days and then think about what you just saw, try to reanalyze it and see if you have a less emotional perspective on the movie. Okay. And then number 7, breaking down the movie, investigate the movie's background. This is now they're doing research after you've watched the movie, after you've taken notes, any given movie contains at least 2 stories, the narrative it tells, and the background of its creation. So you want to look into that. Are there any myths about the movie's creation? Did the filmmakers intend for the movie to comment on any contemporary politics or culture? Was the movie based on a true story, fiction, or a mix of the two? Good questions to answer in the research process. 2. This is part 2. Oh, this comes in multiple parts. So that was just all 6 steps of part 1. Excuse me, wasn't interpreting that correctly. So that's 6 steps in part 1. Then in part 2, breaking down the movie, you want to investigate the movie's background. Then you want to think about the story arc. Okay, we're going over these pretty fast. You can just, all I typed into Google was steps to reviewing a movie. So you can go on this on your own time. Engage with the writing. The writing of the movie supports the story, so a well-plotted movie is often well written as well. Try to figure out if you got all the information you needed from the writing. Make a list of any notable quotes or phrases. Judge the acting. Analyze the lighting and camera techniques. Consider the soundtrack. Examine the trappings. And then part 3, putting the analysis together. Organize your evidence. Start with an introduction to your paper. Summarize the plot. Explore the themes you find interesting. Criticize aspects of the movies you did not appreciate. And wrap it all up. And so that's quite a lot more steps, right? We went from 4 steps to AI's 9 steps to a lot of steps there. I didn't count how many there were, but there were quite a bit, right? Let's see. Oh, no film school. Oh, we actually clicked on that, right? So we were actually reading that one. The Writing Center Film Analysis. Let's see what they have to say about this. Watching the film, brainstorming ideas, and then this is different types of analysis. No, it doesn't. So either way, I think I went over enough to kind of just show you guys. See, all I typed in there was steps to analyzing a movie. If you want to go over other people's different web pages that have collected steps and see what their steps are, what I was just trying to show to you guys is it's drastically different from person to person. The steps that people follow to analyzing a movie, it changes from web page to web page. You'll find some that have 3 steps, some that have 20 steps, some that have 10 steps, 30 steps. So, read a few different articles and then decide which one you think is best suited for you. Try a couple different methods. Really, I do this, or you did this back in the day with songwriting. When I first got into writing songs, there's a lot of different methods to writing a song. I tried a few different methods and then find which worked best for me. And then that's the method that I stuck with. Same with writing a story. When it comes to writing a story, there's a whole host of different methods. There's plotting, there's pantsers, people who don't refuse to plot. Stephen King was a famous pantser. I believe J.K. Rowling was a famous plotter. You can plot your story, you can just pants it, just means buy the seat of your pants, just wing the fucking thing. And then tons of methods in between. Whatever your method is for brainstorming a story and then writing the story down, try a few different methods and then pick which one works best for you. We definitely aren't going to get into any more of that guy stuff. So I did mise en scène. Mise en scène. I'm pretty sure I got it. We can get that out of the way too. Mise en scène. Okay, I did want to take a little extra time because we did just hit 2 hours for the stream, which my streams, I tend to keep them around 2 hours. I did want to touch a little bit. We'll go over a little bit just so we can lightly hit on types of film analysis. Okay, so it turns out there are a lot of different types of film analysis. So when you're watching something, you have to look into what you want to talk about. You have to lock into what you want to talk about. Here are some directions you could go. 1, formalist. This focuses on the technical elements and how they are creating meaning, which is more or less what we've been following. There's a reason for that. I do think formalism is generally the way to go when it comes to things like this, sticking with just the bare bones technical aspects of something and getting really good at analyzing those technical aspects, because your ability to analyze the technical aspects are going to further inform how good you are at these other types of film analysis. So formalist is the first one, and I think is a really good basic one to start with. The second type is a narrative analysis, which examines the story, the characters, and the theme of the film. Again, that would be more or less just you're analyzing the screenplay to some extent, really. I mean, a big part of that comes from the actual writing and the movie itself too, but the narrative itself, you can do its own type of film analysis that's exclusively just on the narrative, which examines the plot, the character arcs, and the thematic elements of the story. Ideological film analysis, which looks at how a film reflects or challenges social, political, or cultural ideas. This would be comparable to, say, feminist film theory or queer film theory, right? You're specifically analyzing film through those theoretical lenses to analyze what kind of social, political, or cultural impact those films are having, specifically on women and feminism, and in terms of feminism, and on the LGBTQ community in terms of like queer theory. Okay, so that would be an ideological analysis of a movie. Psychoanalytic film analysis explores unconscious desires or symbolisms within the film. Okay, so that's going a little bit, at this point, once we get to ideological, psychoanalytic, and then the next one, cultural and historical, investigates the film within its historical, social, and cultural context, you're going to need to have some sort of precursor knowledge in order to do that. It's pretty difficult to understand a movie through feminist film theory if you don't know anything about feminism. It's pretty difficult to be able to do a psychoanalytic analysis of a movie if you don't understand anything about psychology. It's going to be pretty difficult to understand any psychological themes in the movie, for one thing, but it's definitely going to be hard, or you're going to be very inaccurate, let's say, when trying to piece out any potential unconscious symbolism or meaning in the story that maybe was communicated by the director that the director didn't intend, is what essentially it means by that unconscious or subconscious desires and some symbolism. And then same with cultural and historical meaning. You're going to need to know the historical, social, and cultural context of what's happening in the film, meaning the film setting and where the film was shot. You're going to want to have some knowledge on that, and like when it came to the movie Belfast from the Media Insider, if you don't know much about the Troubles in Ireland, you're going to have, you can still enjoy the movie. You're still going to get a lot out of the movie. It's still worth watching the movie, but it's going to be very difficult to analyze just how culturally accurate or historically accurate that movie is, right? If you don't know anything about that point in time in history and the culture during that point in time, you're not going to know if it was accurate or not. it's going to be very difficult for you to know, like, well, okay, so did they give you a good perspective, an accurate perspective, or an interesting perspective that maybe changes the way people view that point in time? You're going to have a little bit of precursor knowledge about that. You see what I mean? So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't dive into those types of film analysis. It means that if those types of film analysis seem exciting to you, then you should do the groundwork and learn a little bit something. If feminist film theory seems exciting to you, then do a little bit of groundwork in feminist film theory. Oh, look at that. Onigiri Chick. Hello, how are you doing? I don't know how long you've been watching, but thanks for watching the stream. What's a good psychological film you like? A good psychological film. Gosh, man, now that you put me on spot, I have no idea. There's a couple that I can point out. Funny enough, the first two that come to mind have the same actor in it. There's a lot of psychological aspects. I think, okay, this is kind of, I think this is almost like a, what would you call this? Cop out, kind of, because I think a lot of people would probably say this, but Silence of the Lambs would be a pretty obvious one, because there is so many psychological elements, specifically with analyzing the psychological state of Clarice Starling throughout the movie. The director, writer, and then of course Jodie Foster do such an amazing job of giving us this, like, everything that those three did in that movie does such a great job of giving us this really psychologically complex character in Clarice Starling. Then, of course, you throw in the scenes with Hannibal Lecter, and the psychology, it's just off the charts. It's just crazy. The writer of the book clearly put in a lot of research into psychology to understand how a psychologist would fuck with one of their patients, right? So, that would probably be one of my first psychological films. And then to throw in another Anthony Hopkins movie, there's a movie called Fracture that is very interesting. He does not play a psychologist in that movie. It is another thriller, psychological thriller, right? There's a lot of legal aspects of it too. If you're big into like courtroom, not really courtroom, but like legal dramas, legal thrillers, there's a lot of that in there. But there's a lot of cat and mouse stuff between Anthony Hopkins, who again plays the bad guy, and the cop that's chasing him down. And I forget the actor that plays him. Gosh, that's a really good question, though. There's so many really good psychological films. I'm just going to type in, because there's so many at the tip of my tongue. Psychological films. I might, I watch a lot of horror movies myself. So most of the movies that I know of that are psychological, that really, I was like, whoa, they were probably horror movies, right? So I am going to type in psychological horror movies, because I know there's ones that I've seen that are like right on the tip of my tongue, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember what the fuck they are. I hate it when that happens, but it happens every time. Anytime somebody asks you. I mean, in the meantime, while I'm looking through this, do you have any specific psychological movies, especially horror movies, that you like? Anything that you can suggest, because me and my cutie pie, we love psychological horror movies. So if you can suggest anything that you particularly like, that would be pretty awesome. Oh, okay, yeah, you and your sister love horror movies. Yeah, those two are good. Silence of the Lambs is a classic, but yeah, if you have any good psychological movies you like, definitely hit me up and let me know what they are. Session 9, that's kind of an interesting one, because that is based in a mental institution. I don't know if you've seen this one. This is one that, I just kind of looked at a list of them to see which ones do I remember seeing that were really good as far as psychological horror goes. Oh, how could I forget that one? Okay, I'll get to that one in a minute. But Session 9 is funny to say psychological, because the whole show takes place in a mental asylum, and it covers psychology. It covers the topic of psychology, and it does a very good job. It's psychological horror in a mental institution, so you can't get much more psychological than that, right? But that is a good one. That's an old one too. When did this movie come out? I feel like 2001. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say maybe 2004 or 5. 2001, yeah. Okay, and then I have to point this one out again. It's an obvious one. you know, sue me for being too obvious and not creative, but American Psycho, man, you know, a lot of people give. Ooh, that's another good one too. I'll have to talk about that one in a minute. Okay, you got me on the topic. Now I can't stop. It was a good question though. It was an awesome question. Thank you for throwing it out there. So American Psycho, I have so much love for this movie. A lot of people watch it. Like I watched it as a kid and I was like, this is just a regular slasher film and it kind of blows. And I didn't really like it when I was a kid. And then I got older and I read the book and then I did some research into the movie. Yeah. And then I realized what the point to the movie was. And when everything clicked, I was like, this movie is fucking brilliant. On a psychological level, it is just so awesome. And it's hard to describe without ruining aspects of the movie. I don't want to give you any spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it is very dependent on the psychological health of the protagonist. The main actor here, Christian Bale, plays, what's his name? Patrick Bateman. Okay, investment banker Patrick Bateman. The whole movie is a psychological movie for reasons that I really don't want to get into because it kind of takes out the ending, right? I don't want to give up the ending of it, but the psychological stability of that main character plays such an important role in that movie. And it's so well done, man. The director did a great job of taking what the writer was attempting to portray and portraying it as accurately as they could, while leaving out some of the more disgusting parts of the book, because the book is intense. Like the book to American Psycho is way fucking intense, right? If you're into, like, they call it splatterpunk is the name of the genre, I think nowadays. It's pretty brutal, you know. It goes over the killings, specifically the way that he kills people in it is just, whew, it's graphic, man, super duper graphic. But they obviously leave a lot of that out of the movie, still make it pretty intense. Like the kills are really intense, but the director does a great job of taking the meaning of the writing, portraying it in a way that the writer for a long time was happy. The writer, after a while, decided he didn't like it, but at the time of the making of the movie, he was pretty stoked about it. And the book itself that the writing comes from, which heavily influences the movie, obviously, is just so cleverly written. You know, as a writer, I don't know if I'll ever write anything as amazing as that. And then a last one I wanted to bring up to you in terms of psychological horror movies that are awesome is this one right here, Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers is based on a true story, a really sad true story about two identical twins who were surgeons. Jeremy Irons plays the identical twins. He does an amazing job at playing two characters. These two twins, they are revolutionaries in gynecology. They revolutionized the industry, I guess, the medical industry of gynecology. And they got very famous for doing so. Well, for a long time, nobody actually knew that these two twins existed. There were two separate dudes, obviously, that both pretended to be the same guy through almost the entirety of their careers. And so even in the business that they owned, the hospital that they owned, the patients that they worked on, girlfriends that they had, bosses, all the people they knew in life thought that there was just one person. It was actually two twins pretending to be different people. And the story does end tragically. It's a very brilliant, it's a slow-paced movie, not nearly as fast-paced as American Psycho, very slow burn, but a lot of character drama. It really focuses on the, the unraveling state of mind of these two brothers, because eventually they do unravel and they aren't mentally stable people, which you got to imagine that's, you know, if you have a twin brother or sister and you're pretending to be them so much to the point that goes into your guys' careers and your relationships with other people. Like, just think how crazy is that to just swap wives or swap boyfriends with your sibling. That's so weird. That's so wild. And it would take a little bit, in their case, more especially, right? Because, hey, everybody's got their own fetish, whatever your thing is, you know, no judgment here. But for these two, it was definitely a mental issue with them. Then slowly and very unfortunately and tragically, their lives unraveled. That's a really good psychological horror movie. Yeah, it's super insane to think about. So those are 3 mindfuck movies for you. I say those last 2 especially are really good mindfucks. I think everybody's seen American Psycho, but if you haven't, check it out. Dead Ringers is a lesser well-known one, and it's also, what's the name of the director? I love the director. I just blanking on his name right now. Oh, David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg. If you're a horror movie fan, especially body horror, David Cronenberg essentially invented body horror. He was the guy, he made The Fly. If you've ever seen that one. Yeah, this was one of his early pictures. And there's not a lot of body horror in it. There's a little bit for certain. Like at the end of it, you get into some kind of crazy body horror stuff. But a lot of it is based on true events that happened, which makes the story more tragic than terrifying. But it is still spooky. It's crazy. It's a really crazy movie. There was another one that I haven't watched yet, but I just bought because everybody said it's such an amazing psychological horror movie. And it has, I'm not seeing it in here. I don't know if I'm gonna, I think it was, Possession. That's what it is. Possession. Not The Possession. Possession. I think I saw it in 1980s, 1982, 1981. There it is. This is the film. Yeah. Possession in 1981 is supposedly an amazing psychological horror movie. I forget this guy's name, but he was in Jurassic Park, which automatically I'm a huge fan of him for just being in that movie. But yeah, this movie, I haven't watched it yet, but apparently everybody says it's a total mindfuck. So I bought it on Halloween because it was on sale, and I still haven't gotten around to watching it, but supposedly it's pretty twisted. So there's some, thank you for the awesome question. I appreciated that. That was awesome to get into some of my favorite psychological horror movies for you, but there's a few of my own that maybe you would like to dive into at some point. But yeah, let me know what some of yours are, because, I am always up for any suggestions that I can get too, right? This was kind of, what I was hoping Film Buff Fridays would turn into, is get a bunch of people to hop on. So while I'm talking about these things, I can get people to talk about their perspectives of movies with me and learn a little bit more about film and learn a little bit more about films I haven't seen or films I didn't like. It's funny, they have an Anora advertisement over here. I just watched that with my girlfriend, and she could tell you I did not like it at first. I mean, I liked it. It was a good movie. It had a good story. I thought it was very entertaining. I laughed at a lot of parts of it. Me and her were cracking up at some parts of it. Were just absolutely hilarious. The acting was really good. It was all around a really good movie. I just could not believe that it won an Oscar. I was like, this is not Oscar material. And then I got on Reddit, as you do, and read somebody else's very expert opinion critique of the movie, and then was just like, oh, it sold me, dude. This movie is amazing. Like, I did not understand the meaning behind the movie. And then after hearing somebody else break it down for me in little baby steps, so it was easy for me to understand, I was like, dude, I'm sold. Anora is a fucking sick movie. And yeah, I understand why it won Oscars. Okay. So having people to talk like this with, is a whole point of Film Buff Fridays. To have people to communicate with on these ideas and get better at analyzing stories, right? Because that's something I enjoy. I hope that's something you and anybody else who's watching enjoys. And that's the whole point of this, right? So yeah, anyways, there are 5 different types of film analysis, which I also wanted to make a point before I end the stream. We'll end it here in a minute, but there is a difference between film theory and film analysis, right? So, psychoanalytic film theory is a film theory, but it works off of the premise that a film has a whole series of psychoanalytical aspects to it and then it has essentially it's a deep dive into the psychoanalytic aspects of a film. And then you work from that framework. The analysis aspect of it is just the idea of exploring how could this movie have some subconscious or unconscious ideals that it's pushing through, right? So, that's important note I wanted to make. Unlike film theory, where when we get on Film Buff Fridays, on a Geary Chick, since this is your first time that I've seen you on the stream, anyways. if this is your first Film Buff Fridays, we will have some Fridays where I'm going to go over some film theory type stuff. And we were planning on starting with formalism film theory and structuralism film theory and auteur theory, but we're not going to do that with film analysis. The point of this stream today was to just give everybody who's watching a rough analysis on how to start analyzing films for yourself. Give you guys a good jumping off point of, if you want to get better at film analysis, which I do, that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this because I'm a good film analysis. I'm going over this because I fucking suck at film analysis and I want to get better. So this is what the research is about, is me learning how to get better at it. And hopefully you guys are learning something too and learning along with me. And what I wanted to, go over is establishing aspects of a film that are worth analyzing if you're ever going to analyze film. And then going over a rough how-to, like basic steps for analyzing a film, and then briefly go over these film analysis. And we were going to watch this YouTube video by the Media Insider, Learn Film Analysis in 20 Films. I do think I'm going to put that off because the stream did end about like 20 minutes ago. And although I am having fun, man, I can talk about films all fucking night long and it would be a blast. This was a blast just to talk for 2 minutes and 20 seconds with, about film. It was a blast to have you in here on Onigiri Chick and give you some of my suggestions on some good psychological horror movies. It was fun to sit and chat with movies with you too, Cutie Pie. Thank both you guys and anybody else who's watching. I appreciate you guys coming in and checking the stream out. But as much fun as I'm having, I do need to step upstairs and get some of my Cutie Pie's delicious fried chicken, because I've been craving it since we brought it up in the chat. So I'm probably going to go ahead and do that. Go upstairs, get me some fried chicken. And then next stream, one of these streams here coming up soon, because next stream, I believe I'm going over the next Film Buff Fridays, that'll be next Friday, or it won't. Oh, excuse me. Okay, let me replace that. Next Thursday, I will be going over the 8 elements of film theory. We're going to be putting Film Buff Fridays on Thursdays next week, because Friday, me and Cutie Pie are flying out to Oklahoma to have Easter weekend with my parents. So, Onigiri Chick, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate you watching. I really do. Thank you. I'm definitely going to enjoy my dinner. My Cutie Pie makes amazing fried chicken. So I appreciate that. But thank you for watching the stream too, and I appreciate your chats too. It was awesome having a conversation with you about psychological movies. Next time you're ever up in the chat, give me a list of some of your favorite psychological movies, because I would love to check some of them out. I really would. So, but if you do want to jump in for another Film Buff Fridays, Onigiri Chick and anybody else who's watching, that'll be next Thursday. Usually Thursdays, I do Conspiracy Theory Thursdays, where I go over a conspiracy theory. But next week, since I'm leaving Friday morning to go to Oklahoma, we're going to be doing that on Thursday. Instead of doing Conspiracy Theory Thursdays, I'm going to do my Film Buff Fridays on Thursday. And we'll be going over the 8 elements of film theory. And that might be a good time to go over the Learn Film Analysis in 20 Films. We might do that, or we can do it the following week too, when I'm going over more narration and storytelling. The 8 elements of storytelling will be the last Friday of the month, last Film Buff Friday. So that about covers it. The next time I'm streaming will be next Monday. And if you haven't shown up for a Monday stream, Monday streams are Mental Health Mondays. And so I go over a mental health topic every Monday for a couple hours. Next week is going to be an exciting topic for me. It is the 4 habits of Navy SEALs. Okay, so that doesn't sound like a mental health topic. You're like, what do Navy SEAL habits have to do with mental health? Well, I will tell you. Navy SEALs, when they first started, had a graduation rate of about 5%, which made the whole program unviable. The money it cost too much for them to only have 5% of Navy SEALs graduating Navy SEAL school, because Navy SEAL school was so hard. It was just so hard. And the people who created the school said, look, we went through the training. We know how hard it is. We don't want to make it any less hard, because we want these guys to be elite. So what can we do to make more people pass? And what they did is they hired a psychologist, Dr. Eric Potterat, who taught them or showed them 4 habits that they need to instill in their Navy SEALs in order to help improve their mental toughness. Basically 4 habits that you can put in your daily life that improves your mental strength, your mental toughness, your ability to undergo stressful situations and come out on top. And it works. They employ these 4 methods. They teach all, to this day, they still teach all Navy SEALs these 4 methods for mental toughness. And the graduation rate for Navy SEALs is around 25% now. Still very low because it's an extremely difficult program to go through, but 25% now go through it. And I want to show you guys what the 4 habits are that they taught the Navy SEALs for improving mental toughness to help you get through really stressful or difficult situations in your life. I think it will be a very beneficial stream to anybody who is interested in mental health topics, who is going through difficult times in their life. I think this is something that could be really exciting to go over. I'm excited to go over it. So I hope you guys are too. Anyways, thanks to everybody who tuned into the live stream on Agari Chick. Thanks for checking us on Agiri Chick. Thanks for helping us out. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thanks for checking me out. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. I hope to see you back here again one day. If not for next Monday, then maybe for my next Film Buff Fridays next Thursday. And in the meantime, to anybody else who finds this on YouTube, you can check out all these videos on YouTube. My PODs, DOVs, my video VODs. It's a 3-letter acronym. It's something like that. The VOD will also be over on Twitch if you want to watch it. If you're over on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate that. If you enjoyed the content, of course. If you didn't, then, hopefully come back some other time and I'll have improved. But if you did like the content, please like and subscribe and check me over on Twitch, where you can come live chat with us and have an awesome conversation about these things while we're talking about them, because that's really the whole point. It isn't just to sit and talk to the computer and talk to Cutie Pie, although I love talking to my Cutie Pie. It's also to talk with a lot of you guys and hear your thoughts on this subject matter and have you there to learn with me would be the exciting part of this venture. So the more I can get of you to come in and do this with me, the more exciting it gets for me. So anyway, that wraps it up for me. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Rest of your life. You have a wonderful rest of your life too, but have a wonderful rest of your night. Have a great weekend this weekend. I won't see you for Easter, so have a very happy Easter if you celebrate Easter. And if not, you still have a badass weekend. All right. And I will talk to you next Monday. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.